Chapter 101. Stand aside and let me fight. If I get hurt, I lose. This was Lin Moyu's 8th run through the Tyrant Desert instance. For once, luck was on his side. He actually found a desert fruit. A small, almost amused smile flickered across his otherwise impassive face. Desert fruit were rare consumables that accelerated skill training, exactly what he needed. 2 of his abilities were already nearly maxed, and with the fruit he could push them to their full rank. What made it even more perfect was that he was only 1% away from gaining a level. If he pushed now, the skills would cap and then scale with his new level. If he waited until after he'd reached level 22, he'd have to spend an extra practice to catch them up. Timing mattered. Desert fruit. It's a skill cultivation item, someone shouted, laughing. One of the other players made a dash to grab it. A skeleton materialized between them at once, its hollow eye sockets fixed on the runner. The sudden appearance froze the player midway, and the others went still. Lin Moyu's expression hardened. "Let me be clear," he said quietly. "That desert fruit belongs to me. I already said so before we entered the instance. After I use it to finish training my skills, whatever's left will be for everyone else." A few players bristled. "There are so many desert fruits around here. Why do you get them all?" one complained. Lin Moyu turned to him, cold. "Say one more word and I'll kick you out." He was the captain. He had the right to kick people out. In this place, being kicked from the team meant you were instantly ejected from the instance, which would make the whole mission fail. The man's temper flared, but he didn't dare to argue. Still, there was stubbornness in his eyes. He wasn't convinced. A few others shared the same look. Lin Moyu didn't bother to read their thoughts. The skeleton warrior and skeleton mage had already taken positions, surrounding every cactus. No one was going to steal his cactus fruit. Faced with the troops of skeletons standing like an army, the complaints died in their throats. What they might say after leaving the instance didn't concern Lin Moyu in the least. "Why is it so windy?" someone muttered. "There's something weird about the wind. It's a bit cold." Lin Moyu smiled faintly and began to use his skill. Bone armor manifested over and over across his body. With each appearance, a thin gust of icy air poured out. Small effects compounded, and the temperature around them started to fall. The coolness bit at their skin. Level 1 bone armor only consumed 10 points of mental power, so he could cast it rapidly. He kept practicing, stacking the effect again and again. When the skill reached level 2, its mental power cost immediately rose to 20 points. Lin Moyu didn't care. He'd been eating desert fruit and spamming bone armor non-stop, so the cost wasn't an issue. The desert fruit was incredible, practically a godsend for cultivating skills. It couldn't be harvested or stored, and its appearance rate was absurdly low. Everyone watched, mouths watering, as Lin Moyu popped one desert fruit after another and kept using the armor to train the skill. They wanted some badly, but no one dared to move. The Skeleton Legion wasn't something to be trifled with, and Lin Moyu was their captain. If anyone tried to snatch the fruit or force the issue, they could be expelled from the dungeon and lose everything they'd gained here. Some players looked openly jealous, others had hate in their eyes, as if Lin Moyu had robbed them. He ignored them. Let anyone try to take it, he'd welcome the challenge. No matter the mental power drain, the repeated use accelerated bone armor's growth. In just half an hour, it climbed to level 21. Skeleton armor, level 21. Summon bones to form an armor, granting 2,100 points of physical defense for 5 minutes. This skill can also be cast on others. Level 21 bone armor granted 2,100 physical defense. Even without any talent boosts, that was enormous. Mages of the same level only had base physique in the low 300s, and with all their gear, they might reach 400 to 500 at most. Bone armor outclassed a mage's shield, and it could even be cast on other people. With his talent amplifying the effect 30-fold, the armor's protection would be the equivalent of 63,000 points of physical defense. Lin Moyu realized that if he maintained that armor, he could probably let the tyrant strike him and still hold firm. Even without summoning a skeleton, as long as he had enough spirit power, he could stand up to the tyrant directly. The Soul Flame's damage wasn't negligible either. He finished training the skeleton armor and moved on to the slow curse. Scarlet light flared and spilled across the yellow sands. The curse entered the world on a low, buzzing wail, like a voice from the abyss. As the skill rose in level, the red glow intensified, and the area it covered kept expanding. Lin Moyu cast the slow curse again, and it was as if the whole world fell under its shadow. Slow curse, level 21, curses enemies within a 105-meter radius, reducing their movement speed for 1 minute. Thanks to talent bonuses, that 105-meter radius ballooned to 3,150 meters. The slow became devastating. Once he released it, most enemies were effectively thrown into slow motion. The area of effect was absurdly large. Even in a pitched battle, it would cover a significant portion of the field. He tested it by casting the curse into the sky. A low humming filled the air, and the heavens flushed scarlet, as if a sheet of bright red had been stretched across the world. To anyone watching, the spell was both impressive and terrifying. Lin Moyu felt pleased. The only skill left lagging behind was Corpse Explosion. It was still only level 3, and there was nothing he could do about it without corpses to practice on. He glanced at the pile of desert fruit. About a third of them remained, roughly 60 or 70, more than he needed and useless to him. He plucked 3 more, then turned to the others. "Take the rest and share them," he said. "I'll go into the ant-hole. You wait here. Don't come in." Lin Moyu said it and slipped into the nest. Immediately there were explosions from within. Desert fruit could only be held for 5 minutes after being picked, and he made full use of that window. Caring nothing for how many he used, he blasted his way through the tunnel, popping a fruit whenever his mana ran low, and then pushing on. He left no ant alive. The whole cavern trembled with the force of his assault. When his voice reached the surface, the people waiting outside lit up and hurried over, clamoring for the desert fruit. The fruits were revered as training aids. Even 1 or 2 could boost a skill by a level. The crowd descended into chaos, grabbing and even fighting over the spoils. Lin Moyu paid them no mind. What became of them didn't concern him. To him, they were just clowns. His relationship with the group was purely transactional. He collected the money, delivered the goods, and nothing more. The next morning, Xiaoshui and Zuomei left the dormitory arm in arm. After spending the previous evening together, they had quickly grown close and talked about everything. Zuomei was quiet by nature, but she still chatted far more than Lin Moyu ever did. At least Xiaoshui could carry on a normal conversation with her. Lin Moyu, by contrast, was practically mute. Zuomei was especially curious about him, the national champion, and most of their conversation drifted back to questions about him. They stopped for breakfast in the cafeteria, and Xiaoshui insisted on treating. "Let me pay for your meals from now on," she said. Money was no concern for her. Her family was wealthy and used to indulging her. After they finished eating, the two made their way to the school square where the opening ceremony would be held. It was 8 in the morning, an hour before the ceremony, but many students were already gathered, grouped by province. As Xiaoshui and Zuomei arrived, they noticed Feng Shu standing nearby. Clad in a long robe with a sword strapped to his back, his bearing calm and imposing. Xiaoshui could tell at a glance that Feng Shu came from a good family. Some things, like bearing and poise, couldn't be put on overnight, and his presence naturally drew attention. A cluster of girls nearby watched him with shining eyes and whispered to each other. "Wow, he's gorgeous. A professional swordsman. So cool. I think I'm in love." They spoke in nonsense-laced awe, but Feng Shu didn't seem to notice. He was used to it. When he spotted Xiaoshui and Zuomei, he walked over and gave a casual greeting. "Hey," Xiaoshui smiled back. "Good to see you." Feng Shu gave a rueful little shrug. This sort of thing was always a bit of a headache for him. He changed the subject. "Have you seen Lin Moyu?" "No," Xiaoshui said. "He should be coming." Feng Shu scanned the crowd. "He will." Outside the dungeon hall, Lin Moyu and the others were just emerging. The last group had cleared out. It was 8:30 in the morning, half an hour before the opening ceremony, so there was still time to check personal attributes and skills. After finishing this dungeon run, she had finally hit level 22. Just as he'd expected, the skill upgrade when he leveled. Lin Moyu knew his class's mechanics well. If you train a skill up to the current level cap, Then when you level up, the skill level cap rises with you, and the skill is automatically upgraded. It was a built-in edge many other professions didn't have. He turned in all his completed quests at the quest hall first, then converted every exchangeable drop into points. He'd been hoarding the loot from the 8 dungeon runs he'd done. Every material that could be traded was in his inventory, so exchanging those alone gave him a hefty sum. Then, over the next 6 times he ran people through the dungeons, he earned nearly another 240,000 points. All told, his balance now sat at 350,000 points. By most players' standards, that made him comfortably wealthy, but to Lin Moyu, it still felt small. A single mid-level skill scroll cost 80,000 points, so 350,000 would only buy 4 of them. 4 scrolls was barely a dent. If he tried to buy them with gold instead, each one would cost 10 million coins, a staggeringly expensive option. He frowned. Even with his advantage and the points he'd amassed, there was still a long way to go before he could buy everything he wanted. There's still time. Find a way to get more points, Lin Moyu told himself as he left the dungeon hall and hurried toward Shuifu Square. By the time he arrived, almost all the new students were already gathered. The opening ceremony was about to begin. Xia Shui bit her lip, anxious. Why isn't he here yet? Only 10 minutes left, someone replied. Fengshu suddenly glanced to one side. Here he comes. Chapter 102. Let's take a gamble. Do you dare? Lin Moyu walked slowly, his breathing steady and immovable, like a mountain. The repeated trials in the dungeons had changed him in a way he barely noticed himself. His aura was no longer that of a newbie. The difference was obvious at a glance. Fengshu's eyes narrowed. He's stronger. Xiaoshui nodded. Yeah, he looks even stronger now. Zuomei watched him closely. There's still fighting intent about him. He must have just come out of a dungeon. Fengshu only confirmed what they all suspected. Lin Moyu's presence had drawn attention from everyone around. Isn't that Lin Moyu, the national champion? He looks different. He's way more powerful than at the final exam. I don't know. He kind of scares me. Students murmured and compared notes. Everyone had seen Lin Moyu in the battle space. If he hadn't been there then, many of them might not have survived. Xiaoshui waved. Lin, over here. Lin Moyu smiled when he saw her, and the fighting aura that had clung to him slipped away as naturally as a cloak. He quickened his pace and walked over. You're all here, he said. Xiaoshui frowned. Don't be ridiculous. If we hadn't come, that would mean we didn't get in. Lin Moyu realized he'd misspoken and smiled awkwardly. Zuomei suddenly turned to him and asked, What level are you? Lin Moyu didn't hide it. Level 22. What? Xiaoshui gasped, then clapped a hand over her mouth. Fengshu stared, equally astonished. How could someone be level 22 after only a few days into the major exam? Xiaoshui couldn't hide her shock. How did you train? How did you level up so fast? Lin Moyu answered casually. You level up faster the more dungeons you clear. Fengshu spoke in a low voice, filling in details. The school has a dungeon hall with lots of dungeons. You can spend points to reset a dungeon's cooldown so you can run it again and again. He glanced at Xiaoshui, who already knew about the dungeon hall. Her family had better information than most. Zuomei hadn't been clear on the details, so she stayed silent and listened. Xiaoshui asked, So you've been grinding the dungeons in the dungeon hall? Lin Moyu nodded. Xiaoshui sighed. You have a lot of points, so feel free to spend them. But don't be like me. I wish I had saved some. You have to remember, points are hard to come by. Lin Moyu didn't know what to say. Points weren't impossible to earn. Sure, it wasn't easy to get rich, but it shouldn't be that difficult to accumulate enough for everyday needs. Fengshu spoke quietly. Even if all you do is keep refreshing the book, the rate you level up now is unbelievable. It really was impressive to hit level 22 in just a few days. If Lin Moyu hadn't been stirring up trouble over the last 2 days, he would probably be at level 24 by now. Leveling up wasn't that hard for him. A bell rang, signaling the start of the opening ceremony. Where the podium had been empty a moment before, a new figure now stood. Hello, students, the man said. I am the Director of Academic Affairs here at Shijing Academy. My surname is Chu, just call me Director Chu. First of all, welcome to Shijing Academy. He smiled at the assembled students. I imagine many of you were the top students at your previous schools. You did exceptionally well in the entrance exams. You took the city championship, the provincial championship, and even the national title, Director Chu said. But those were yesterday's victories. Starting today, you're freshmen at Xiejing Academy. He looked out over the gathered students. Here you'll learn things you've never seen before. You'll explore dungeons and fight in battles you can't imagine yet. There will be mentors to teach you new skills and survival techniques. In return, you'll have to complete assignments the school gives you. The details are already loaded onto your communicators. Check them after the ceremony. I'll summarize quickly. At the academy, there are 3 tiers of students: ordinary students, college students, and students enrolled in top colleges. That's a lot to take in at once, I know, but you'll get used to it. The 3 tiers receive different levels of resources, so work to move up. The higher you go, the more exciting your life here will be. Director Chu's voice grew more animated as he spoke. High above the clouds, several figures hovered in the air, watching the assembly below. Baiyuan was there with the others. Old Chu just keeps repeating the same speech every year, he complained. He never changes a word. Ning Tairan snorted. Go on then. I've been sparring with him since yesterday. I find myself disagreeing with everything he says. Baiyuan waved it off. Fine, I'll do it next year. Lao Meng, help me write a speech. Meng Anwen shook his head. I'm not writing it for you. Improvise. Baiyuan's face fell. Lao Meng, don't be like that. Meng turned away and ignored him. Director Chu went on for a full 20 minutes, saying all the usual things, some useful, some not, but everyone had to listen. Then he shifted topics. We also have a traditional highlight at the opening ceremony, the challenge session between upperclassmen and freshmen that everyone enjoys. Youngers can be challenged by veterans, and the challengers must wager a corresponding number of points. New students can refuse, Director Chu announced, but if a freshman wins, the seniors' points go to the freshman. And don't worry, he added, whether you win or lose, the newcomers don't have to pay anything. A group of senior students climbed onto the podium at his words. Baiyuan sneered. Same old routine, he said. We just need to put the freshmen in their place, teach them how deep the waters are. Ning Tairan shook his head. You're underestimating them. These new students are city and provincial champions, full of confidence, even arrogance. If you don't put them down early, they'll start thinking they own the place. Baiyuan understood the implication and laughed. I just wonder if anyone will actually dare to challenge us. Challenge Lin Moyu? Someone murmured. Meng Anwen smirked. Nobody would be that presumptuous. It was an irresistible setup. The stakes were all in the newcomer's favor. Win and you take the prize. Lose and you lose nothing but a little pride. And losing to a senior wasn't shameful for a rookie. If anything, it was the seniors who would be humiliated if they lost. With that kind of upside and so little downside, several students were already ready to volunteer. A hand went up. Director Chu, the student asked. The veteran students have much higher levels and better skills than we do. How are we supposed to stand a chance? And how will you keep us safe? Director Chu had expected the question. He smiled and replied, Good question. The school already considered this. This will take place in a professional martial arts arena. A ceiling formation will be used to equalize both sides, suppressing everyone's level to match the lower-ranked combatant. For example, if one fighter is level 22 and the other is level 17, the formation will automatically reduce the higher level so both operate at level 17, and all attributes will reflect level 17. The same rule applies to skills. Any skill above level 20 will be disabled and cannot be used. As for safety, don't worry. The formation also protects you on the stage. No one can be killed during a match. And our academy has god-tier healers. Even if someone loses an arm or breaks a leg, they can regrow it in a matter of minutes. The students exchanged looks. The school had thought this through. The restrictions and medical safeguards would put both sides on an even footing. Several upperclassmen rose, one after another, radiating the kind of competitive energy that had everyone smiling. They loved this old academy tradition, part initiation, part lesson. The seniors liked to take charge, to teach the freshmen what it meant to be a student here. One of the seniors, a man with a longbow slung across his back, stepped forward and pointed at a freshman who was also carrying a longbow. "I challenge you," he announced. The freshman happened to be the provincial champion and met the challenge with a proud, steady look. He accepted without hesitation. As more seniors stood and issued challenges, some of the freshmen agreed to spar, others declined. Then a voice cut through the chatter. "Lin Moyu, I challenge you." Lin Moyu looked up. It was Ling Zhen calling him out, persistent as ever. The man had badgered him several times before. He never seemed to give up. Ling Zhen pressed the point, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You're this year's national champion, Lin Moyu. Aren't you going to take a challenge?" Lin Moyu's eyes flashed with a hard, dangerous intensity, but he held himself in check. Killing wasn't allowed at the academy, and he kept that lethal edge locked down for now. Lin Moyu's voice was low and steady. "How many points will you put up?" Ling Zhen didn't hesitate. 5,000. Lin Moyu shook his head. "Too little." Ling Zhen frowned. Lin Moyu actually called his offer too small. A cold voice from the side asked, "How many would make you accept the challenge?" Lin Moyu raised one finger. 100,000. A stunned silence fell over the crowd. Most people who came to these matches risked 10,000 points at most, usually 5 to 7,000. No one expected 100,000. Ling Zhen sneered. "Are you kidding? Do you even have 100,000 points? You're not worth that." Lin Moyu smiled without amusement. "Fine, then let's make it a wager. My points are the stake." He laid out the terms clearly. "If I win, you pay me as many points as you have. If I lose, all my points belong to you." He said the next words slowly and with deliberate emphasis. "Do you dare, Senior Ling Zhen?" He put unusual weight on the honorific, as if daring Ling Zhen by name. Chapter 103. Your level isn't as high as mine. Summon the seal talisman. Xiaoshui stared in surprise. It was rare to hear Lin Moyu speak so much. When he opened up like this, there had to be a reason. Xiaoshui knew him well enough to know it wasn't that Lin Moyu couldn't talk. He simply chose not to. If he was suddenly being loquacious, it meant he had a plan. And whatever it was clearly directed at Ling Zhen. The question landed squarely on Ling Zhen, and he faltered. Everyone turned to him, waiting for an answer. He had been the one to issue the challenge, but now, faced with Lin Moyu's boldness, he hesitated. Lin Moyu's voice cut through the silence, cool and unmistakable. "Don't you dare?" The jab stung. Backing out now would be a total loss of face. Gritting his teeth and forced by pride, Ling Zhen reached for his last card and replied, "If there's anything you don't dare to do, then I accept." With that settled, the crowd moved toward the Academy's competition field. A few influential figures hovering above, hidden observers, chuckled softly as they watched the drama unfold. Meng Anwen shook his head. "This guy's an idiot." Bai Yuan grinned. "Yeah, you die so fast on the battlefield. You're just cannon fodder. And worse, someone like that could ruin a whole dungeon run for your teammates." "I don't even know how strong his opponent is," Ning Tyrant added. "If you agree to this on a whim, there's no coming back from it." "Between the two of them, Lin's the useless one," Meng said. "If he loses, he could lose everything, his standing, even money." Bai Yuan raised an eyebrow. "How many points does Lin have, anyway?" "At least 300,000, Ning replied. 300,000? Bai Yuan's surprise was obvious. Even the senior students who took dungeon missions day in and day out rarely accumulated that many points. It was no small sum. Meng Anwen laughed. "What a little rich kid." They made their way into the arena. The stands were packed with veteran students. Everyone knew this was the bit of spectacle that followed the opening ceremony every year, and they'd come early to watch. The Academy's trainers were ready at their stations. On the competition platform, a glowing formation rose up, and a curtain of light folded over the field. The first match, Yu Fei versus Su Nianda, the announcer intoned. Both introductions followed. Each combatant was an elven archer by specialty. Yu Fei was a level 24 student from Feilong Academy. Su Nianda was the top-ranked scholar of Hejiang Province at level 16. They took the standard bows and arrows provided by the arena, no attribute bonuses, and stepped into the ring. The arena's suppressing formation immediately knocked Yu Fei down to level 16. Any skills above level 20 were locked out. His abilities were forced into a level 16 template. Even so, Yu Fei looked calm and untroubled. Su Nianda, on the other hand, showed a trace of nervousness. Yufei smiled. Student, I'll begin. All right. Please teach me, senior, Sunyanda replied. With that, a bowstring twanged and an arrow snapped from the string like a streak of lightning. Sunyanda dove aside and tried to fire back, but when he drew the bowstring, there was no sign of Yufei where he'd just been. Where did you go? Sunyanda thought, and then felt a chill at the back of his neck. A dagger was already there. Yufei had slipped in behind him. It was unexpected for an archer to use a blade. Sunyanda hadn't even seen it coming. Our archers have a quick thrust technique, young man. You were careless, Yufei said with a faint smile. He stepped back to widen the distance, giving Sunyanda another opening. If he hadn't, that throat stab would have left him maimed at best, dead at worst. This time, Sunyanda decided to seize the initiative. He drew, took aim, and let an arrow fly, locking on Yufei. At the same instant, Yufei loosed as well and activated a skill. Triple shot. One arrow split into three. One intercepted Sunyanda's shot, while the other two came screaming toward him. Sunyanda's face went white. He twisted to evade, but Yufei drew once more and fired a magic arrow, a conjured, skill-made projectile far faster than a normal bolt. As Sunyanda dodged, the magic arrow reached him first and struck true. Sunyanda stumbled back a few steps when the magic arrow struck and gave a startled shout. Yufei, relentless, kept loosing arrows as if he wouldn't stop. Panicking, Sunyanda scrambled for cover and fumbled for another arrow. I surrender, he cried. He hurriedly raised a white flag. Yufei smiled. Brother, archers aren't supposed to hide safely behind knights forever. You have to be able to handle an enemy on your own. In the field, there won't always be a knight standing between you and danger. Sunyanda saluted earnestly. Thank you, senior. Your junior has learned his lesson. He thought about how the academy trained newcomers. The whole point was to make fresh students realize their limits so they could improve. Right now, the competitions were underway, and the veteran students were crushing the rookies. The veterans' real combat experience at the academy made their skills and coordination far superior to those of the new arrivals. Xiaoshui had even taken up a challenge and come away with a humiliating defeat. When matched against mages of equal level, he didn't put up a fight. He was overwhelmed from start to finish and finally had to concede. Xiaoshui stamped her foot, clearly not convinced. I won't accept that, she declared. Give me time. I'll be better than him, mark my words. Zuomei patted her shoulder. It's all right. I lost too. I'll go through this with you. Xiaomei is the best, Xiaoshui replied confidently. Even if I lose now, I won't always lose. Feng Shu and Lin Moyu exchanged looks, both baffled by the certainty only women seemed to possess, and shrugged. Next match, Ling Zhen versus Lin Moyu, the announcer called. Lin Moyu stood and stepped onto the stage. From the crowd, Xiaoshui shouted encouragement. Idiot Lin, go teach him a lesson. She had a lot of faith in him. The two contestants faced each other, and their profiles flashed above them. Ling Zhen, Bailey College, level 21, Warlock. Lin Moyu, National Champion, level 22, Necromancer. A hush fell over the audience. A national champion was nothing unusual, but a new student already at level 22 was extraordinary. The level was the key. Champions were common enough, but a newcomer at level 22 was practically unheard of, rarer than any treasure. All eyes turned to Lin Moyu. That's him, the one in the dungeon hall, the one who just set the new record. Yeah, Lin Moyu, same name, same guy. Turns out it's him. He's been leading runs through the Tyrant Desert Dungeon the last 2 days, carrying teams that were dead on their feet. I heard it pays 1,000 points per person. One run, and he can pull in almost 40,000 points. The guy's made a killing. This is going to be good. If Lin Moyu wins, Ling Zhen will make a laughingstock of himself. Didn't expect to see a show this big, worth the trip. The crowd in the stands buzzed with excitement, everyone primed to watch a spectacle. On the competition stage, a magical veil hummed. The field cut them off from the outside world, so neither competitor could hear the audience. Ling Zhen smiled coldly. Lin Moyu, he sneered. What a joke of a national champion. That title means nothing to me. Lin Moyu replied calmly. Your strength is below mine. Ling Zhen's expression shifted. Lin Moyu's words were blunt but true. He went on, voice steady. I showed extraordinary aptitude from a young age. I was admitted to a special training school and later to the academy. My talent outclasses yours. Lin Moyu said evenly. Your rank is lower than mine. Ling Zhen's face twisted. So what if you're professional? That's just luck. On the battlefield, awareness matters more. Lin Moyu repeated calmly. Your rank is lower than mine. That pushed Ling Zhen over the edge. Didn't your mother ever teach you how to speak? Lin Moyu's expression hardened. He had no mother, not in his past life, not in this one, and the remark hit a raw nerve. A cold, killing intent flared in his eyes. Ling Zhen froze. He recognized that look from their last encounter in the dungeon hall, the same look Lin Moyu had given when he was ready to kill. Ling Zhen sneered and jabbed. All you do is summon and detonate corpses. Take away the bodies and you're nothing. If it weren't for the school protecting you, you'd be dead. At that, Lin Moyu summoned a skeleton warrior. The bone soldier hefted a massive cleaver and lunged for Ling Zhen. Calm as ever, Ling Zhen produced an amulet, crushed it in his hand, and a gust of wind blew through. The skeleton scattered and vanished. Lin Moyu felt it instantly. His ability had been sealed. He could no longer summon. Ling Zhen laughed, holding up a talisman between two fingers. See? This is a summoning seal talisman, designed specifically to deal with summoners. Your summoning art presence is nullified, he went on. There are no corpses here for you to use. Right now you're nothing. He lifted his staff and flames leapt up around him. You should be afraid. Even if I don't kill you today, I'll make you know the pain of fire. He expected to see panic on Lin Moyu's face. The boy only watched him calmly. From the stands, Ning Tyran murmured, Ling Zhen shouldn't have access to a summoning seal. This is a countermeasure made for summoners. Meng Anwen frowned. That's an intermediate talisman. He couldn't have gotten it on his own. Ning added, someone must be backing him. Someone who wants Lin Moyu taken care of. Bai Yuan wasn't concerned. They think Kid Lin's only trick is summoning. They couldn't be more wrong. Just wait, they'll pay for underestimating him. On the stage, Lin Moyu's voice was flat, foolish. He pressed his palm to his chest. Where there had been nothing but empty air, a room full of skeletal armor materialized, clattering into place like a dozen mute warriors answering a call. Ling Zhen's attack arrived, a sheet of flame that washed over Lin Moyu's body. Chapter 104. How dare you question me? Who gave you the guts? Flames ripped through the sky and crashed down, turning the contest platform into a churning sea of fire. Ling Zhen laughed wildly as the inferno roared around them. Good thing you're above level 20, he crowed. Otherwise I couldn't even use my level 20 skills. How does my fire and rain feel? Does the burn hurt? From the heart of the blaze, Lin Moyu simply stepped out and strolled across the garden as if through a summer mist. The skeletal armor covering his body gleamed coldly. It completely insulated him from the surrounding inferno. Against a level 22 bone armor, Ling Zhen's attacks were no more than an ant's sting. Ling Zhen froze, his grin falling away. This was nothing like what he'd expected. He raged. How is this possible? This can't be. He lashed out with his staff, blasting fireballs and icy arrows into the air. They struck Lin Moyu, only to be stopped flat by the bone plating, their effects nullified. Enough of this, Lin Moyu said quietly. Your skills are too weak. Flames flickered across his palms. A single spark leapt from his hand and burrowed into Ling Zhen's head. A scream tore out of him. He dropped to his knees, clutching his skull, keening in unending agony. Blood poured from his eyes, ears, nose, and the corners of his mouth, blood streaming from all 7 orifices. In the next instant, he vanished from the arena and reappeared outside it. A beam of light descended from above and bathed him. The school medics rushed forward to treat Ling Zhen. Lin Moyu's strike had been instantaneous. If it hadn't been for the arena's protective formation, Ling Zhen would have been dead on the spot. Ling Zhen had been fighting largely with summoning magic and had no real personal defenses to match that kind of blow. Don't think Lin Moyu only won by luck or because fate smiled on him. He hadn't been helpless. He'd combined bone armor for defense with soul flame for offense. By himself, those 2 abilities were enough. Ling Zhen had been cut down in seconds. The crowd, 600-odd spectators who had settled in with snacks and drinks, were dumbstruck. They'd come expecting a long, exciting duel, not this quick ending. All anyone had seen was a flash of light in Lin Moyu's palm. Then Ling Zhen collapsed. It was too fast. And what was that bone armor? Lin Moyu's defense had been so solid that Ling Zhen's seemingly devastating spells hadn't even left a mark. After the senior therapist finished treating him, Ling Zhen finally came to. His face was streaked with blood. He looked wrecked, terror still written in his eyes. When Lin Moyu glanced his way, Ling Zhen began to tremble. "You lost," Lin Moyu said flatly. Only then did Ling Zhen truly register it. He had lost, but he was alive. As long as he was alive, nothing else mattered. It was only points, after all. The formation dissolved. Lin Moyu stood on the stage, expressionless. The bone armor covering him still gleamed with a cold white light, sharpening his already wintry bearing. Director Chu stepped forward to announce the result, and then, after checking Lin Moyu's score, his face registered surprise. He looked up at Lin Moyu again before speaking formally. "Student Lin Moyu is the victor of this match. According to the agreement between the parties, student Ling Zhen must pay Lin Moyu 358,000 points. "What?" Ling Zhen exploded, leaping to his feet. "How do you have so many points?" he shouted, pointing at Lin Moyu. 358,000 points. That still isn't enough to pay for him. Ling Zhen's voice cracked. "That can't be right. He's only been at the academy a few days. There must be a mistake." "Director Chu, you must be wrong. This is a mistake," he shouted, nearly hysterical. Director Chu looked at him coldly. "Student Ling Zhen, are you accusing me of making a mistake?" The question hit Ling Zhen like a bucket of ice. He scrambled for composure, shaking his head. No, I didn't mean that." Chu's expression hardened. His authority had just been challenged, and he did not take it lightly. "Student Ling Zhen, pay the points." Ling Zhen's face fell. "I don't have that many points." Director Chu tapped his communicator and spoke without sympathy. "You have 128,000 points in your account. I will transfer those to Lin Moyu now." He watched Ling Zhen's face strain. "The remaining 230,000 points you will need to borrow or raise by selling assets to the vendors. It must be paid off within 6 months." Chu's voice went colder. "If you can't settle it, expulsion is a possibility. I know your family background. I will contact them myself." With that, Director Chu turned and left, his steps sharp with irritation. Ling Zhen stood there, stunned and helpless. It was the first time he'd been called out in public since he'd been director of academic affairs at Xiajing Academy for years. Everyone was watching. Whispers, scorn, the kind of attention that made a person feel exposed. Didn't he have any shame? The announcement hit him like a splash of cold water. 128,000-point penalty. Lin Moyu's balance now stood at 486,000 points, and he still had 230,000 points of penalties outstanding. He turned and left. As he passed Ling Zhen, he gave the other man a faint look. Ling Zhen smirked and muttered that this was self-inflicted, that he disliked Lin ever since he arrived, and now was finally getting what he deserved. He even added, half joking, half malicious, that this wasn't necessarily over if Lin happened to cross the wrong people outside. The opening ceremony for the new students ended without further incident. Tutors would begin classes tomorrow. Schedules were already set and would not change. Students were free to choose which lectures to attend. Attendance wasn't forced by the school. On the walk back, Xiaxue looked up at him with genuine curiosity. "How did you get so strong?" she asked. Lin Moyu chuckled, unsure how to answer. Xiaxue brightened. "Will you take me dungeon running sometime?" He nodded. It wasn't as if they hadn't supported each other before. Xiaxue was relieved and pleased to see Lin Moyu agree to come down. Her joy was interrupted by the buzz of a communicator, a message from Bai Yuan. "Get him ready to go in 2 hours," it read. "After the opening ceremony, I'll take him to the Yuan battlefield." Xiaxue frowned. "What should we prepare?" she asked. Lin Moyu shrugged. He wasn't sure either. "What exactly are we preparing for?" he said, tapping the screen. Bai Yuan answered almost immediately. "Points are useful at the academy," he messaged, "but out there the only currency that matters is gold." Xiaoshui's curiosity was piqued. "What's going on?" Lin Moyu cleared his throat. "Bai Yuan, people call him the White God, wants to take me to the Yuan battlefield." "Where's the Yuan battlefield?" Xiaoshui asked. She had never heard of it. Feng Shu's voice grew serious. "The Yuan battlefield isn't a training ground. It's the real front line, the place where humanity has been fighting the abyssal monsters for thousands of years." "So it's dangerous?" Sheshe looked worried. Feng Shu nodded slowly. I don't know all the details. There are definitely risks, but there are also opportunities. That's probably what Bai Yuan is thinking about. Dungeons in secret realms often held relatively rare and valuable treasures. Lin Moyu went to the exchange and checked the prices. He put all the materials and the weapons and equipment he'd bought up for sale. The weapons could be traded for points, but they didn't fetch much, and he had enough money already. He didn't want to waste time haggling. The gold-grade gear dropped by the tyrant brought in a decent sum, and the other materials added up. Altogether, he sold more than 2 million gold coins worth of goods, and suddenly found himself quite wealthy. With the proceeds, he bought some basic spirit potions. They didn't restore a lot, but they were better than nothing. As for the other equipment on offer, he wasn't interested. He already had 140 skeleton warriors and 70 skeleton mages at his command, which gave him plenty of confidence. New gear would do little for him. He checked 2 more exchanges, but couldn't find the fatigue potion. It was so useful. A single bottle keeps you refreshed for 24 hours with no side effects. If he wanted one, it looked like he'd have to go to Shuhan to buy it. As he thought it over, Lin Moyu realized he hadn't left Shuhan's contact information. He grabbed the teleportation stone and went to the dungeon hall to find Shu Ying, but Shu Ying wasn't there. An hour passed quickly. As promised, Bai Yuan arrived right on time. Ready? He asked. Lin Moyu nodded. He had money and the food Ning Yi had left, enough to last a month. Bai Yuan led him out into the yard and called loudly toward the servant. Lao Meng, send us to the Yuan battlefield. In the void beyond, a tall tower had suddenly revealed itself, the Divine Shada. Lin Moyu remembered it from his trip to Mermaid Island. He had passed through the Shen Shada gate there. The Divine Shada had remarkable properties, ones that could help a person break through a level. Ning Yi had warned him to prepare carefully before using the Shen Shada, especially the first time. That first attempt was the most important. Bai Yuan had said much the same. Now Lin Moyu had 2 opportunities to use the Divine Shada to break through, but he didn't yet know how to make the most of them. Bai Yuan chuckled. Is our daughter-in-law going into the tower? Lin Moyu gave a small, non-committal hum in response. Don't worry, I'll break into the tower after your second run. The god Xiata's tower isn't like a dungeon. It's not that easy to force open, Bai Yuan warned. A lot of people don't realize how serious it is. You might get something by breaking in early, but it's minimal. You'd just be wasting the opportunity. Hearing this, Lin Moyu agreed to the plan. He made a note to attempt the tower after his second run. Then God Xiata flared into life, shooting thousands of beams of light as countless runes traced themselves through the air. The sigils locked into a teleportation array that wrapped around the 2 of them. Gone, the voice called, and though the voice lingered in the air, the people themselves had already vanished. Chapter 105, Soul Imprint, The Eternal Great Wall. The transmission took a long time, longer than anything Lin Moyu had experienced before. He counted the seconds in his head. 30 seconds passed, and it still hadn't stopped. The distance they were traveling had already carried them far beyond the borders of the Shenxia Empire. The teleportation pressed on, dragging them farther and farther away. After 2 full minutes, it finally halted. A presence hit him the moment they arrived, an atmosphere utterly unlike the city's. It was savage and malign, laced with the metallic tang of blood and an unfamiliar cold. The stench was awful and immediate. Lin Moyu frowned. The sensation tugged at his memory. He had felt something like this in the battle space. The earth there had carried the same sour, oppressive odor, and when the abyssal demons later swarmed in, the aura had only intensified. This is the breath of the abyss, Bai Yuan said quietly. Lin Moyu opened his eyes. They were standing on a teleportation array beneath a dim, sickly sky. In front of them rose a vast palace of black steel. Above the main hall hovered a spinning orb, suspended in the air. Dozens of eyes seemed to stud its surface, all gazing outward as the sphere slowly turned. Bai Yuan pointed to the glowing orb. This magic eye is used to watch the abyss, so we'll know if anything tries to slip through and attack. Lin Moyu nodded. Feng Shu had only told him that the Yuan battlefield was where humanity had once fought the abyss. That was the extent of his knowledge. Bai Yuan led him out of the teleportation array and walked in one direction. They emerged inside a castle ringed by walls tens of meters high. The battlements were crowded with soldiers, each one a seasoned professional who exuded a powerful aura. Lin Moyu estimated they were at least level 40, having completed a second ascension. Their arrival drew attention. When the soldiers saw Bai Yuan, they all fell into a respectful posture. Lin Moyu asked, "Do they all know you?" Bai Yuan tapped the 5-star badge on his shoulder. "They don't recognize individuals, but they do recognize this." The badge was purple gold with 5 stars set into it. Lin Moyu didn't know what it signified. "You'll have one of these later," Bai Yuan said. "I'll take you through the formalities." The castle was vast. They walked along a long corridor before coming to a separate, standalone temple. The place was bustling, people coming and going, a steady line moving through the building. A sign over the entrance read, "Military ID Office." Bai Yuan, who clearly came here often, steered Lin Moyu through a narrow side door. Inside was a small office where clerks bent over paperwork with their heads down. One of them, without looking up, said, "If you're here to register, go to the counter on the right." Bai didn't bother with pleasantries. He slapped the counter. "I don't have all day. Move faster. Your attitude stinks." The clerk bristled, about to snap back, then caught sight of the badge on Bai Yuan's shoulder. He straightened instantly and snapped to attention, saluting. "Good day, General." Bai grunted and handed the matter off. "Issue him a sergeant's certificate." The clerk's whole manner shifted. "Right away, sir. I'll need his Xiajing Academy ID." Lin Moyu produced his Academy identity card, which the clerk accepted. Apparently, Xiajing Academy credentials were valid here. The Xiajing Academy ID was valid everywhere in the country. With it, you needed no other identification. People treated you differently the moment they knew you were from Xiajing. Even after graduation, the card stayed with you for life. A clerk took Lin Moyu's card to complete the registration. A few minutes later, he returned with a white badge, identical to the one on Bai Yuan's shoulder, plain, white, unmarked. Bai Yuan took the badge and began to lead Lin Moyu away. "General, please slow down," someone called after them. The clerk watched them go, wiped the sweat from his brow and blurted, "A 5-star general? What? How could a master like that be here?" He hurried to ask around, and when he got his answer, his face went pale. There were only a handful of 5-star generals in the Shengxia Empire, and the description matched the person he had just seen. "The White God," he gasped. "It's actually the White God." Excited, he rushed off to report to his superiors. Bai Yuan led Lin Moyu to a quieter spot and handed him the badge. "This is your sergeant's badge," he said. "Keep it on you. Don't put it in the storage space. In that case, if you kill an abyssal on the Yuan battlefield, it will automatically log as a meritorious deed. Ranks go from lowest to highest. White is the private, then black sergeant, silver lieutenant, gold colonel, and purple general. The stars above your rank show how many military merits you've earned at that level. The more merits, the more stars. We use a 10-star promotion system. When you hit 10 stars at your current rank, you get promoted to the next level. Any stars beyond 10 count toward the next promotion. "I'm a 5-star general," Bai Yuan said with a trace of pride. "There isn't anyone like me in the whole Shengxia Empire." Lin Moyu heard the boast and had to admit it was true. Bai Yuan's exploits were too many to count, each one worthy of a lesson in the histories. Lin Moyu remembered one story in particular. 3 demon kings had once led their armies out of the abyss, struck into human lands, and sacked 10 cities within the divine kingdom. The garrisons were thin and unprepared, the cities were on the verge of falling, and hundreds of thousands of civilians were moments away from becoming monster fodder. When all hope seemed lost, Bai Yuan descended like a god. Alone, he shattered the abyssal host. 2 of the 3 great demon kings lay dead, the 3rd driven off, grievously wounded. He never retreated. He fought without reinforcements, without aid, and without medical care, and he nearly paid with his life. It was that battle that forged his legend. From then on, people called him Baishan. His reputation was earned the hard way. Respectfully, Lin Moyu fastened his sergeant's badge to his shoulder, the same insignia Bai Yuan wore, and the guards at the gate of the palace straightened and saluted, allowing them through without question. Bai Yuan led him into a vast, magnificent hall. The Hall of Heroes was filled with countless tablets and memorials. A hush of reverence hung in the air. Lin Moyu walked among them in awe. Bai Yuan said quietly, "This is where the sages of my god Xia are enshrined through the ages. They died in battle and are heroes forever," he intoned. "Even in death, you will not return to your hometown, but will continue to guard our Shenxia Empire with the strength of your souls." He opened his palm, closed it into a fist, and performed the Xia Guli ritual, a formal salute, toward the rows of tablets in the Hall of Heroes. Lin Moyu followed his lead. "Today, Bai Yuan, descendant of Shenxia, begs the sages of the Empire to protect my descendant," he called. He repeated the invocation 2 more times, each time louder and more solemn. At the third recitation, the countless tablets in the Hall of Heroes seemed to roar. A brilliant light exploded outward, and an illusory tower formed from the radiance. Small though it was, the tower was imposing. Its black shaft pulsed with murderous intent. "This is the Demon Extinguishing Tower," Bai Yuan announced. "Channel your spiritual will into it and leave your mark." So it was revealed. The tower was indeed the Demon Extinguishing Tower. Lin Moyu didn't ask why. She simply accepted his help. Bai Yuan went on, "This way, even if you die on the Yuan battlefield, we'll still have a way to bring you back. Consider it a sliver of hope." Lin Moyu stared at him, then finally understood what he meant by saying he would bless the younger generation. It wasn't an easy request. Calling on the will of the sages in the Hall of Heroes takes real power. She noticed, to her surprise, that the 5-star general badge on Bai Yuan's chest was missing a star. It had become a 4-star badge. He had forcibly expended one of his stars to give her that chance at resurrection. "Thank you," she managed. There were 1,000 things she wanted to say, but only those 2 words came out. Bai Yuan laughed. "Don't thank the old man. Just take care of yourself out there, and kill as many enemies as you can." He grew more serious. "Now let me give you a proper briefing on the Yuan battlefield." Only then did he get to the point. The Yuan battlefield is the front line where humanity collides with the abyss. Unless you go into the abyss itself, this is the main theater of the war. All the nations have set up outposts here, forming a continuous line of defense. The Shenxia Empire is one of humanity's strongest kingdoms, and its fortress is correspondingly formidable. Known as the Eternal Great Wall, it is made up of 9 fortresses laid out in a row, each spaced more than 1,000 kilometers apart, together forming an almost unbroken barrier. Along the wall are lofty fire platforms and magical observation devices, magic eyes, manned year-round by trained specialists. They're stationed at Fortress No. 1, the frontline bridgehead. Since the Eternal Great Wall was built, no abyssal monster has ever breached it. Other countries' defenses, by contrast, are frequently penetrated. When that happens, they often have to call for reinforcements. Beyond the wall, the Yuan battlefield is studded with dungeons large and small. Humans must enter those dungeons to obtain equipment and gain experience. But the abyssal monsters guard those places jealously, blocking entrances, hunting intruders, and lying in wait for anyone who tries to sneak back out. Skirmishes between the 2 sides break out constantly here. The closer you get to the abyss, the higher the dungeon level, and the deadlier it becomes. In this particular instance, there's a unique people who call themselves the Dragon Clan. They aren't true dragons, but they're clever and powerful, and they drop rare materials that human craftsmen prize for making equipment. Naturally, the abyss monsters will do everything they can to stop humans from harvesting those resources. The fights at the entrance to the dungeon are always the fiercest. "Be careful when you go in," a veteran warned. "Take teleportation stones with you. Because of the abyss's power, the stones here are single-use and sometimes fail. Bring extras. Also, abyssal monsters use curses, so bring anti-curse potions." Lin Moyu frowned. "And what if my cooling talisman runs out of charge?" Chapter 106. Entering the Yuan battlefield for the first time. Ghost, physical immunity. "There are senior alchemists stationed in the fortress," Bai Yuan said. "You can pay them to help replenish your energy. They're usually not interested in gold so much as materials, though." "Ask them," he added. "If that doesn't work, you can return to Xiajing Academy. You can use the same teleportation array we used to get here, but it's expensive." Lin Moyu nodded. After Bai Yuan had finished, he took his leave. She then went to the fortress exchange. Fortunately, it was connected to the Imperial Exchange and carried a few items you won't see on civilian markets. These were classified as military supplies and had strict level restrictions dictating what ranks could buy what. Lin Moyu was at the very bottom of the ranks with no military merit, so there wasn't much available to her. One of the items listed was a teleportation stone back to the fort. It cost 10,000 gold coins each, not cheap, and it could fail. The stones were single-use. Lin Moyu bought 10 of them. He spotted an anti-curse potion as well. One bottle would cost 10,000 gold. Taking it would raise his resistance to the curse known as 20-0 by 20% for 1 hour. He considered it for a moment and decided he didn't need it. There was also a section for special battlefield gear. Compared with dungeon equipment of the same level, battlefield gear carried stronger stats and even increased damage against abyssal monsters. As with the potions, purchasing these items required the corresponding military merits. Looking through the listings, Lin Moyu finally understood why Bai Yuan had told him to come with extra gold. Bai trusted Lin to earn the military merits, but he wasn't confident in Lin's ability to raise enough money. The prices were staggering. In addition to the merit cost, battlefield pieces were extremely expensive in gold. Even the lowest tier items ran into the hundreds of thousands of gold coins. Higher tier sets cost millions. Those were completely out of Lin Moyu's reach. After wandering the fortress for a while and getting his bearings, Lin Moyu decided to go take a look at the Yuan battlefield. A pair of defenders stepped in front of him. "Kid, you're only level 22, one said bluntly. "Did an elder from your family bring you here? The weakest monsters out there are level 30, and there are abyssal creatures too. It's dangerous for someone like you," the other added. "To qualify as a soldier of the Eternal Great Castle, you need to be at least level 40 and an advanced professional who's completed the second rank." They had already read the facts from his shield badge. It didn't hide his status. "Thank you. I'm just going to look around," Lin Moyu said politely but firmly. The guards exchanged a glance, then stepped aside. "All right, be careful. If you run into trouble, come straight back," one warned. Lin Moyu walked away and soon disappeared from sight. The guard left behind sighed. "There's another reckless kid. I just hope nothing happens to him." People like that had accidents every year. Most of the time they went out in teams. Solo wanderers weren't unheard of, but they tend to be much higher level than Lin Moyu. You were supposed to be at least level 30 to have any hope here. Even that didn't guarantee safety. Danger could strike at any moment. Players like Lin Moyu, wandering the Yuan battlefield at level 22, were a rarity. After Lin Moyu left the fortress, another team pushed deeper into the wasteland. The Yuan battlefield was thick with an abyssal chill. A thin, soupy mist clung to the air and visibility was awful. Even with keen sight, he couldn't see very far. Suddenly, the runes on his bone armor flared. Lin Moyu startled. He was being attacked, but there was no visible source. The armor's warning pulse kept flashing as invisible blows landed again and again. A stealth monster? The Yuan battlefield was never a safe place. Then, several skeleton warriors stepped out of the fog. The undead charged the nearest target, and the fight erupted. Soul fire flared in their rib cages, red light igniting in empty eye sockets. Giant cleavers flashed in unison, cutting through air and fabric alike. Each sweep was accompanied by a ripping sound and a piercing scream. Only then did Lin Moyu finally make out what was attacking him. The thing was like a swirl of smoke and dust, blended into the mist so it was all but invisible to the naked eye. It had only revealed a fragment of itself when the skeleton warrior struck, just enough that he could see a vague outline. Name: Battlefield Ghost, level 30, Power, 6,000, Agility, 2,000, Spirit, 2,000, Physique, 5,000, Skill, Physical Immunity. Of all the monsters he might have expected on the Yuan battlefield, a ghost-like creature was the last. These spirits only appeared in places like the Yuan battlefield. Elsewhere, they were nearly undetectable. At level 30, its stats weren't overwhelming, about what you'd expect from an enhanced elite in a nightmare-level dungeon, but its greatest danger was how easily it hid itself. It tended to remain invisible until it actively attacked. Fortunately, Lin Moyu was wearing his skeleton armor. The armor's crushing defense let him shrug off the battlefield ghost's blow. The spirit's attack simply couldn't penetrate that tyrannical protection. He felt only a flicker of surprise at seeing a soul monster here, and greater curiosity about the ghost's abilities. As he considered that, the battlefield ghost screamed. The thing's body shimmered and blurred, as if it were made of smoke and dust, growing indistinct and thinner with each passing second. The skeleton warrior swung its great blade in a wide arc, but the edge simply sliced through empty air. No impact, no sound, no wound. Still, the battlefield ghost retaliated, striking at the skeletons as if the fight mattered. Lin Moyu could see clearly that the warrior's blows did nothing. They slid through the apparition like wind. "It's really immune to physical attacks," he muttered. "Then try elemental damage." He focused for a moment and summoned a handful of skeleton mages. They materialized and launched their spells immediately. Explosive fireballs and piercing ice storms slammed into the ghost in rapid succession. The creature shrieked as the elemental energy hit home, each strike biting into it much more effectively than any blade. After 2 or 3 devastating hits, the battlefield ghost collapsed, its form dissipating into nothing. System: Kill level 30 battlefield ghost, experience plus 3,000. System: Acquired soul breath. System: Soul breath. Contains the lingering will of the dead on the battlefield. Can be used to enhance weapons and equipment. 300,000 experience. A satisfying haul. The new material, soul breath, was unfamiliar to Lin Moyu, but its description hinted at powerful uses, an essence that could strengthen gear. He pocketed the item and considered his next move. It could be used to enhance weapons and equipment, a valuable, practical material. From experience, Lin Moyu knew the skeleton warrior wasn't omnipotent. The same went for the skeleton mage. If some monsters were immune to physical attacks, others could be immune to elemental magic. There might even be creatures immune to both. In that case, both the skeleton warrior and the skeleton mage would be useless. He had to stay alert. As he walked toward the dungeon, Lin Moyu kept turning his skills over in his mind. Skeleton warrior is a physical attacker. Skeleton mage is elemental. Soul flame is a mental attack, but what kind of attack is corpse explosion? He replayed the moments when he'd used corpse explosion. The way the corpse detonated felt like a hybrid, not purely physical or purely magical. It seemed tied to vitality, combining physical, elemental, and other effects into one. Better to think of it as an attack of the life system. We'll see the specifics later. Any skill has its strengths and weaknesses. Nothing should be taken lightly. I heard my sister Lin Mohan's warning again. Be cautious in everything. The Yuan battlefield is vast beyond imagining. After millennia of war, its boundaries have pushed outward so far that the battlefield itself is a landscape of ruins and corruption. Deep in its heart lies the gate to the abyss. Beyond that gate is the true abyss. No one knows when the abyss first appeared. All we know is that when it rose and began to overrun humanity on a large scale, the war began. To the human race, the abyss is synonymous with evil, destruction, and death, a common enemy of all people. The farther you stray from the forts, the more monsters you encounter. The ghosts of the battlefield drift through that chill, death-filled waste, aimless and dangerous, attacking on sight. They are hostile to both humans and the abyssal demons alike. Between the harsh environment, millennia of bloodletting, and the corrupting touch of abyssal power, the Yuan battlefield has become infested with every manner of strange and terrible creature. A strange beast ran by, its head split into 2 maws, like a rabid dog with a twin mouth. It was so fast it could harry several people at once. The 2 mouths spat flames in turn, as if the creature itself were a mage. Not long after came another opponent, a creature hewn from living stone, its surface streaked with the dried blood of countless battles. Its body was encrusted with elemental runes and wards, granting it strong resistance to magic. Lin Moyu sent 10 skeleton mages after it. Even then, it took a full minute of coordinated attacks to bring it down. Monsters like that were everywhere on the meta battlefield. You could clear a patch of ground, but new ones would spawn almost immediately. As they pushed forward, Lin Moyu and his small group passed teams of human players now and then, some from the Shengxia Empire, others from foreign nations. Solo players were rare out here. When people saw the line of skeletal mages marching at Lin Moyu's command, they finally understood why he traveled alone. "Half an hour," someone murmured. "We'll reach the instance in about 30 minutes." They had been walking for more than 2 hours when the fog ahead swelled and surged. Lin Moyu tightened his grip and tensed. 3 figures burst from the mist, a warrior, an archer, and a prophet. The 3 of them broke into a panic, fleeing as if their lives depended on it. The mist around them thickened and swirled, and it felt as though more things were pushing through its edges. One of the knights, running with wild eyes, caught sight of Lin Moyu and yelled hoarsely, "Run! Abyssal demons are behind us!" Chapter 107, Abyss Demon Dog, Hell-Level Copy. The knight roared and then fled, sprinting away with panic written across his face. The prophet and the archer trailing him hurried on in silence. Abyss demons. That had to be why they'd come to the Yuan battlefield, besides the dungeon. Bai Yuan had warned him that the abyssal demons that appeared here didn't sleep much, meaning they were usually active, and something Lin Moyu ought to be able to handle. The fog swelled around them, thickening for a moment, then a gust blew it aside. Dark shapes lunged out of the mist. They looked like huge feral dogs, roughly 2 meters from nose to tail and just over a meter at the shoulder. Their jaws lined with rows of fangs that glimmered with a faint blue light. They howled in high, piercing cries as they ran, the air around them filled with the coppery tang of blood. They moved with terrifying speed, even faster than the charging knights. Lin Moyu's fingertips flushed with a faint glow. He sent his sensing technique outward like a breeze, probing the area as the pack closed in. Abyss Demon Dog level 31. Power 5,000, Agility 6,000, Spirit 2,000, Physique 5,000. Skill. Bite. Sensing the ripple of Lin Moyu's detection spell, several of the abyssal dogs spun at once and charged straight for him. There were about 30 dogs in the pack. 10 of them were now bearing down on Lin Moyu. He could clearly see bits of shredded flesh and torn clothing hanging from their mouths. Human flesh. Someone had been eaten. It must have been the mercenary who'd been with the knight. "Damn you," Lin Moyu muttered under his breath. At his silent command, the skeleton warriors reacted. Red light flared in their eye sockets as they surged forward to meet the hellhounds. 10 skeletons met 10 abyssal dogs. The skeleton stats completely outclassed the beasts, nearly 3 times the strength. There was no contest. On impact, the abyssal dogs quickly found themselves at a disadvantage. A skeleton swung a massive blade and sent a dog flying. The skeleton mages didn't stand idle either, unleashing their own attacks into the fray. He activated his skills, and a barrage of spells crashed down on the abyss demon dogs. The beasts screamed, and then let out a thunderous roar that shook the heavens. With each cry, the fog thinned, throwing the fighters into a fresh panic. The pack that had been hunting the 3 knights heard their companions' alarm, shifted their attention, and surged toward Lin Moyu. The dogs that had charged the skeleton warrior, however, were already being cut down by repeated blows. The skeleton mage delivered the finishing strikes, felling them one by one. Kill a level 31 abyssal dog, experience 3 one-thin zealot's merit +1. Obtain Magic Dog Fang. The sergeant's badge on Lin Moyu's shoulder shimmered faintly as it absorbed the military merit. He knew that killing abyssal demons not only yielded experience and loot, but also raised military merit. Keep killing, and the merit would climb on its own. More abyss dogs poured in. Lin Moyu lifted his palm, a soft glow in his chest flared. Skill, Corpse Burst. A deafening blast erupted. The fog within a 90-meter radius detonated, blasting upward and clearing the air in an instant. The newly arrived abyss dogs were wiped out all at once. None of them survived. No abyssal beast could withstand the blast from the corpses. Lin Moyu's sergeant badge flashed brighter. The 30 abyss dogs awarded him more than 9 million experience points and 30 military merit points. A faint star appeared on the sergeant's insignia, there, but not yet fully formed. Lin Moyu allowed himself a small, satisfied smile. More of these magical hounds would be very useful. The 3 who had been running for their lives froze in place, stunned. The abyssal dogs that had been desperately chasing them suddenly veered away and charged straight for Lin Moyu. They had assumed he was finished. Instead, Lin Moyu cut down Abyss Demon Sky in an instant, using a method none of the onlookers had ever seen before. Amazing, is he some kind of veteran? Someone breathed. Turns out he's an undead summoner. I've never seen that class before, another said. I haven't either, a third replied, equally stunned. There were fighters and mages everywhere, so many of them that the battlefield seemed to pulse with restless energy. Lin Moyu glanced back at the crowd, gave a slight nod, and then walked deeper into the Yuan battlefield with the skeleton at his side. The fog closed in again until his figure was completely swallowed. None of the 3 survivors dared to follow. He's too strong, one whispered. Must be a high-level practitioner. In their world, the gap between senior and junior practitioners was obvious. Their status and skill sets were on different planes. The knight sank to the ground, slumping in exhausted relief. His face was wet with a mixture of tears and laughter. No matter what, he said, voice trembling, we're alive because of him. It's a shame Lao Li couldn't get out, another murmured. He sacrificed himself for us. We'll take care of Lao Li's family when we get back, the third promised. If he hadn't held them off, we wouldn't have made it. They rested only briefly. Then, one by one, they activated their teleportation stones and vanished. Far beyond, at the deepest part of the Yuan battlefield, the ground opened into an abyss, a pitch-black maw like a bottomless hole. Suddenly, a voice cut the void. Huh? Why did that pack of pups suddenly die? It's rare to run into a veteran pro. Then send out more pups. No sooner had the words fallen than 10 pairs of blood-red eyes materialized in the darkness. With a savage gleam, a pack of abyssal hounds surged from the void. Lin Moyu finally saw the dungeon entrance, a vast vortex turning slowly in the mist, humming as it spun, sparks of light flashing within its depths. A crowd had gathered at the dungeon gate, people from Shangxia and lands beyond. A huge bonfire burned at the entrance, a pile of wood stacked high, and several groups clustered around it, grilling meat. Laughter and conversation filled the air as parties argued tactics, planned how to clear the dungeon, decided how to split the loot, and debated how best to handle the monsters inside. The scene brought back a strong sense of déjà vu for Lin Moyu. It was almost the same as the entrance to the Shihai mine instance. The nearby area had been cleared of monsters and was safe. With so many players on hand, any respawns would be dealt with quickly. Lin Moyu stowed away the skeleton he had been carrying and walked over. His arrival didn't go unnoticed. Heads turned, and curious gazes followed him as he joined the crowd. So young, not even 20, right? That white stripe with no stars means he's just a recruit. Those 5-star badges are from the Shangxia Empire. Hey, let me see how many levels you've got. People here were blunt and forward, nothing like the stiff formality back in the Empire. The moment Lin Moyu stepped up, a few probing sensing spells were cast his way. Voices rang out at once. You're still using a shroud sigil. Why so secretive? There's no one here to hide from. How old are you? What's your class? Want to team up? We're short a person. Everyone here is from Shangxia. Come run the dungeon with us. Most of the people gathered around the dungeon entrance wore 5-star badges, the little insignia that marked Shangxia folk, and they were openly friendly, quick to band together when they were far from home. Lin Moyu felt their curious gazes and their casual warmth in equal measure. At the threshold, he checked the dungeon info on his interface. The instance was called Dragon Frontline Outpost, and it was a level 26 dungeon. There were 3 difficulty settings: Normal, Nightmare, and Hell. Each mode also had a different party cap. Normal allowed 4 players, Nightmare 6, and Hell 12. Dungeons enforced a 5-5 level restriction, so this one could be entered by characters from level 21 to 31. At the instance gate, most of the veteran players clustered toward the high end of that range, roughly mid-20s to 30. The lowest player I saw was level 25. I didn't notice a single person below that. That made sense. Outside of a few outliers like Lin Moyu, it was rare for anyone under 25 to show up in the Yuan battlefield. Professionals below 25 simply couldn't handle most monsters beyond the field's borders. Lin Moyu scanned the dungeon info and raised an eyebrow. Hell difficulty? He'd never seen that before. His past runs had never gone beyond Nightmare. Dungeons under level 40 never offered Hell mode, so Yuan battlefield really was an exception. A voice called out then, cutting through his thoughts. "Hey, young man, hope you're feeling bold. There's still a slot on our team. Level doesn't matter." A rider from the Shengxia Empire shouted after Lin Moyu before he could go. A sergeant's badge gleamed on the man's shoulder, 7 white stars, marking him as a veteran who had slain more than his share of abyssal monsters. "You can't just take strangers into a dungeon," he called. "If you meet someone incompetent, they could get the whole team killed." His companions didn't argue. Their nods showed they trusted the rider's judgment. From their expressions, it was clear they were experienced fighters and could handle most situations. Lin Moyu smiled and declined politely. "Thanks, but I'll go on my own." He selected Hell difficulty and stepped into the dungeon. The moment he vanished, the people gathered outside went quiet. "He actually went in?" someone blurted. "I saw the vortex flare up. He must have entered." "Going in alone is asking for death," another scoffed. "Or maybe he's some big shot who can clear it solo," a spectator offered. "Where are there so many big shots?" someone muttered. Before anyone could decide to check it out, a man dressed in the costume of the Sakura Kingdom stepped forward. He drew a long talisman, hurled it into the whirlpool, and the vortex exploded in brilliant light. Chapter 108, Hell-Level Dungeon, Unimaginable Difficulty. "Dungeon Detector," someone shouted. A dungeon detector can sense people and objects. A specialized dungeon detector is made to scan dungeons. Use it to find how many teams are operating at each difficulty level inside a dungeon and whether there are any casualties. More advanced detectors can even communicate information in and out of the dungeon, but the device this person was using was only a basic model, enough to display only the most rudimentary details about the teams inside. A pale light spilled from the detector and detailed status lines appeared. Normal difficulty, 1 team, 4 people. Nightmare difficulty, 2 teams, 12 people. Hell difficulty, 1 team, 1 person. No way, he went in at Hell difficulty. What a joke, he actually entered Hell. He's going to die. Doesn't he know what Hell even means? The visitors from Sakura country, who were watching with their detection talismans, laughed derisively. Who in their right mind, they scoffed, would try to tackle a hell-level dungeon alone? "This is really something," one of the Shengxia onlookers sneered. "Tell me, how long do you think he can survive in there?" Displeasure and open mockery rippled across the group. The veteran knight who had invited Lin Moyu earlier stepped forward and drew his long sword. "Want to fight?" he asked. The blade was cool and flashed with a golden light, a gold-tier weapon. That alone marked the wielder as around level 30. More striking, every member of his squad wore gold-level gear. Armor, helmets, gloves, boots, even jewelry. They were outfitted head to toe in top-tier equipment. At the same time, the knight drew his sword. His 4 teammates rose and slipped into formation with quiet precision. Their coordination made it obvious they were seasoned fighters. A team like that, working smoothly together, could take on enemies many times their size. People fell silent, suddenly understanding why they'd invited Lin Moyu. This was a unit that could handle almost any emergency. The man from Sakura went pale the moment he recognized them. This was the veterans team, hands down the best squad around. No one came close. The other people from Sakura turned their heads one after another, as if they didn't know him. After a beat of obvious embarrassment, he forced a smile. "I was only joking, just kidding." The old soldier snorted. "Open your eyes. You little Sakura, how dare you provoke me? Shengxia, do you want to die?" There was anger flickering in the faces of the Sakura contingent, but nobody dared argue. One more word and they figured the veteran's longsword would do the talking. The veteran sheathed his blade and took a step back, pity softening his expression. "Too young," he muttered. "What a waste." They all thought the same. Lin Moyu was far too young to be here. For someone so young to venture into a place like this, he must have some remarkable status or ability, but still it was a shame if arrogance and inexperience cost him his life. Not only the veteran, but several members of Shengxia's people, felt genuine pity for Lin Moyu. This was a hell-level dungeon. No one expected a single person to handle it alone. Inside the dungeon, Lin Moyu stood and stared. Before him rose a mountain, and perched on its summit was a fortress-like structure, its walls cutting a stark silhouette against the gloomy sky. A wide road stretched out before him, winding up toward a fortress clinging to the mountain. The dungeon was labeled Dragon Clan Frontline Outpost. That fortress had to be the outpost. The path climbed relentlessly upward, and from the instance came a heavy, oppressive pressure. It was not the same sensation he'd felt in the Nightmare Dungeon. This felt different, as if something were actively constraining him. Lin Moyu frowned. The feeling wasn't entirely new. He'd experienced something like it in the battle space before. He opened his menu and tried to access his storage, but the storage window wouldn't open. Potions couldn't be used, and teleportation end stones failed to work. The only places he could leave the instance were the starting point where he'd entered, or the exit that only appeared after the boss was defeated. In short, if danger struck, there would be no running away. No access to storage means no supplies, Lin Moyu muttered to himself. You can't run back whenever you want. You always have to keep an exit open. The place felt like a mirror of hell itself. Whatever horrors waited inside would be on an entirely different level. A hazy light stretched his shadow long across the ground. 3 shapes resolved out of the gloom and walked toward him in a loose line. They wore battered armor and carried spears. Sharp horns jutted from their heads. There was a dragon-blooded cast to them, but these weren't the titans he'd seen when he'd changed classes. Those had been dozens or even hundreds of meters tall. These were barely 3 meters high, almost small by comparison. The trio spotted him and gave 2 high, piercing screams before rushing forward. Lin Moyu's pulse quickened. He raised a hand and called his minions into being. Skeletal warriors and mages materialized in dense ranks. The skeletons burst forward like lightning, moving with precise, practiced speed. In moments they had formed 6 concentric rings around the charging creatures, 3 inner layers and 3 outer, closing off every route. The skeleton mages unleashed their spells, and a cascade of magic rained down around them. The 3 dragon spearmen roared, swept their spears in a single motion, and the weapons struck the skeleton warrior with loud clanging echoes. Lin Moyu had slipped a detection technique to the spell, and it registered on the dungeon monsters. Dragon Spearman, Hell Level Elite, Level 30, Power 1,000, Agility 6,000, Intelligence 4,000, Physique 1,000, Skill, Long Spear Sweeping. Seeing the stats, Lin Moyu felt a jolt of alarm. These attributes were beyond those of monsters found in large dungeons, stronger even than super-enhanced elites and comparable to a nightmare-level boss. If this was truly hell-level difficulty, ordinary parties would be routed immediately. No wonder the dungeon required a 12-man team. Even that might not be enough. Still, despite their terrifying numbers, the spearmen were not invincible. None of their attributes matched the skeletal warriors, and there were 140 skeletons in play. As Lin Moyu weighed the odds, the Dragon Clan spears flared red. Skill activated, Spear Sweep. All 3 spearmen triggered the move at once. The 3 dragon monsters swung in unison, their attacks fanning out to sweep across all the skeletons surrounding them. Bam! 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 The impacts never stopped. Every skeleton that was struck staggered and froze, dazed. Lin Moyu recognized the effect at once, the dizziness debuff from the Dragon Clan spearmen, the same effect he'd seen from Genfei. Seizing the opportunity, the spearmen pressed the assault, striking rapidly. The clang of metal on bone rang out continuously. Unfortunately, the skeleton's physique stat was a staggering 15,000, so the blows barely scratched them and did almost no real damage. Lin Moyu pictured how it would play out with another team. If the knight had been stunned and the healer failed to respond in time, the result would have been disastrous. As it was, the attackers couldn't break the skeleton's ring. They were pinned and became prime targets. The skeleton mages began to rain spells down on them. Each blast hit hard. All the while the dragon monsters roared as they fought, the battlefield a cacophony of iron and magic. A few seconds later, the 3 dragon spearmen finally fell under his spell. One of them dropped immediately. Kill the level 30 dragon spearman. EXP obtained dragon skin. Nice experience, Lin Moyu thought, pleased. Killing hell-level dragon monsters took about the same effort as other foes, but the payoffs were far better. He watched the skeleton warrior's stun effect wear off after exactly 20 seconds and made a mental note of the durability. That window was critical. While a skeleton warrior was stunned, it became a liability. If more dragon monsters joined the fight, they'd swarm and rout a stunned skeleton within that 20-second period. Worse, he discovered he couldn't recall a stunned skeleton. He couldn't pull it back to safety when it was incapacitated. Hell-level dungeons were a lot harsher than nightmare-level ones. He had cleared whole nightmare dungeons before, but he had to be cautious the first time through this difficulty. Quietly, he recast bone armor on himself to be safe. The dungeon itself was simple, a straight path to the end, with only thin groves scattered along either side. The forest was full of dragon spearmen resting among the trees. Lin Moyu's arrival snapped them to attention. One by one, they surged forward, shouting war cries. A skeletal warrior stepped up to meet them. It swung its blade, deliberately drawing their focus, then broke into a run deeper into the woods. Lin Moyu relied on the oldest, simplest tactic: pull the mobs and slaughter them in groups. Let the skeleton draw them out, let the rest be mopped up. The bony lure sprinted through the undergrowth and more spearmen gave chase. Lin watched from the shadows, a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. This haul was going to be profitable. Then something went wrong. Several of the skeletons that had gone in to pull the enemies froze at the same instant. Combat logs popped up all at once. They were being hammered, their incoming damage spiking. Lin tried to recall them, to pull them back. Nothing responded. He sprinted forward with the original skeleton warrior and found a small group of skeletal fighters surrounded by dragon spearmen. The skeletons were dazed, wavering under a hail of blows. Around each one a translucent bond had formed, locking joints and limbs in place. The bones couldn't move. "Shackles of the wind," Lin muttered, recognizing the immobilizing effect. "It's a mage's spell," he realized. Across the clearing, Lin Moyu saw several dragon-like monsters gathered at the edge of the forest. One of them carried a massive staff, clearly a dragon mage. Chapter 109. The skeleton warriors are restrained. What to do, online, etc. The 6 dragon mages used their crowd control skills to lock down the charging skeleton warriors. It wasn't just the mages. The dragon spearmen were contributing their own control abilities as well. So the skeletons found themselves under a double layer of suppression, wind shackles, followed by stuns. The spearmen were tactically sharp, chaining their abilities in sequence, so the skeletons never had a chance to fight back. Lin Moyu remembered the dungeon's description. These skeletons weren't mindless beasts like many dungeon monsters. They possessed a faint intelligence, enough to use simple tactics rather than acting purely on instinct. If he'd only had a handful of them, that intelligence would have been a real problem. Fortunately, he didn't. Seeing the situation clearly, Lin Moyu didn't hesitate. He unleashed a swarm of skeletons at once. The sudden surge broke the spearmen's attack rhythm. Where their coordinated suppression had held, the unexpected volume of bodies created confusion. For a moment, the dragon forces were thrown into chaos. The dragon spearmen pressed the attack, cutting down skeleton warriors in a steady wave. The skeletons managed to form a ring around them, however, keeping the dragons from breaking free. He was dizzy and couldn't join the fight. Those skeletons outside couldn't get in, and the ones inside couldn't move. All he could do was silently endure the spearmen's blows. A few dragon spearmen leapt high, trying to punch their way out of the encirclement. The peripheral skeletons jumped up to meet them. The ones inside had to go out, while the ones outside tried to go in. The two groups collided in midair, and both fell back. Close behind the skeleton warriors, the skeleton mages unleashed a barrage of spells: fire, ice, lightning, and gale, pressing the dragon spearmen hard. Then the sky suddenly flushed red, and a downpour of fire rained down, sweeping over nearly all of the skeleton mages. The dragon mages had targeted the enemy casters directly, ignoring the foot soldiers. It showed they had a measure of tactical sense, just not much. The skeleton mage had an elemental resistance passive skill that boosted its resistance to elemental damage by 300%, in effect, dividing incoming elemental damage by 3. A fire attack that would normally have dealt 1,000 points now only dealt 333. With a physique stat of 7,200, the skeleton mage's durability wasn't low. The dragon spearmen couldn't drop him in a single blow. Under a hail of fire and rain, the skeleton mage struck back at the dragon spearmen. After a couple of exchanges of skills, One of the dragon spearmen let out a scream and fell within seconds. Relying on his flashing bone armor, Lin Moyu charged through the burning downpour. When he was about 100 meters away, inside the range of his next skill, he thrust his palm forward. Skill, corpse burst. There was a violent explosion. Screams tore through the air as corpses were blown apart. A large number of dragon spearmen were obliterated mid-air. Experience numbers flashed across the screen like sweeping text, and a heavy pile of dragon materials fell where the bodies had been torn apart. But all of the drops were dragon skins. The 4 types of dragon materials Bai Yuan had requested were nowhere to be seen. Lin Moyu frowned. Either the drop rates for those specific materials were extremely low, or the dragon spearmen simply didn't drop them at all. The silver-white glow of the skeleton armor blinded the eyes. With the armor's defense equivalent to 64,000 physical points, Lin Moyu stood as immovable as Mount Tai, unshaken by the onslaught. 2 more violent explosions rocked the field. When the dust cleared, there were no dragon spearmen left. A skeleton mage turned its focus to the dragon mages. Dragon Mage, Hell-level elite monster. Level 31 power, 5,000, agility, 3,000, spirit, 12,000, physique, 8,000. Skills Binding of Wind, Rain of Fire. Indeed, it was Binding of Wind, the classic crowd conjure, old spell of support mages. Miao Yu had used that very skill back at Mermaid Island. The 6 dragon mages didn't have physiques as sturdy as the dragon pikemen. Under the indiscriminate bombardment of the skeleton mages, they were quickly cut down. Each kill triggered the usual rewards, plus 6 to 20,000 experience and item drops. 6 notifications appeared in rapid succession. Kill a level 31 dragon mage, experience 6,000. Obtain, Dragon. Kill a level 31 dragon mage, experience, to obtain Horn of the Dragon Clan. One of the loot messages, Horn of the Dragon Clan, caught Lin Moyu's eye. He tried to open his storage to check it, but the storage was blocked. He couldn't access the item. The notification couldn't be wrong. He really had gotten a dragon horn. Out of the 6 dragon spearmen they'd just fought, only 1 dropped the horn. It was one of the 4 materials Bai Yuan needed, which meant the drop rate here was painfully low. Lin Moyu realized 1 dungeon run probably wouldn't be enough to gather everything. He'd likely have to grind this place repeatedly. For now, though, he focused on the immediate problem, the skeleton warriors. The stunned skeleton finally came to. Lin Moyu shepherded the most seriously injured skeletons into the summoning space, where they could recover quickly. He dismissed the skeleton mage as well. It had taken some damage from the earlier rain of fire and needed time to heal. He didn't rush back in. In all his dungeon runs up to now, he'd always pushed straight through, but this was the first time he actually took a breather mid-clearing. He replayed the last encounter in his head, how the 140 skeleton warriors, each with massively boosted stats, had been rendered useless. They were stronger on paper than the enemies, but they had no resistance to control effects. The Dragon Spearman's group attack carried a 20-second stun. That single crowd control mechanic completely neutralized his skeleton army, turning an overwhelming force into sitting ducks. If this keeps happening, the skeleton warrior will eventually be wiped out. If I'd acted even a little later, the few skeletons that rushed into the woods would have died. I summoned the skeleton warrior first. The only time it was ever really in danger was back in the West Sea Mine instance. After that, it never looked threatened again, which is why I started thinking skeletons were unbeatable in melee. Now, looking back, that wasn't true. Their apparent invincibility comes from inflated attributes. The moment an enemy brings strong control skills to bear, those attributes count for nothing. At best, the skeleton can hang on for a while before collapsing. Skeleton warriors have clear weaknesses. Unless I have specific counter skills, they are vulnerable. I'm only level 22, so I can't learn new skills right now. I'll have to work with what I have. I thought it over and came up with a countermeasure. It isn't perfect, but it will fix some of the problems. At minimum, it would have dealt with the situation that just happened. Level 30 skill, don't fail me now, Lin Moyu muttered. He'd already seen what his lower-tier abilities could do. At level 10, there'd been a corpse burst. At level 20, a summoned skeleton mage. so level 30 had to be worth something. After a short rest, the skeletons poured back from the summoning space. The skeleton mage that had been wounded before was fully healed. The team moved on. Ahead of them, a patrol came into view. 6 dragon spearmen in formation, sweeping the area. There was no dragon mage with them. Earlier, the spearmen and their mages had been scattered, and because the skeletons had charged in recklessly before they'd ended up surrounded and beaten, Lin Moyu had learned that lesson. This time, he planned to take the initiative instead of waiting to be besieged. He sent 2 skeleton warriors charging forward. Quick and nimble, they drew the spearmen away, kiting them out of formation and denying them any chance to close. At the same time, Lin Moyu kept a careful eye out for any dragon mages. As long as the skeletons weren't locked down by mage spells, the spearmen wouldn't dare press an attack. This time, he didn't dive into the trees. He ran along the road. After the skeleton warrior had drawn off dozens of dragon spearmen, it came back swiftly. "Prepare," Lin Moyu ordered, and the skeleton mages took their places. When the dragon spearmen moved into range, Lin Moyu's palm flared red. He cast Slow Curse. A scarlet web unfurled through the air as if to blanket the whole dungeon. A loud, humming crackle accompanied the spell as enormous red shackles snapped onto the charging troops. Slow Curse, level 22, curses enemies within 110 meters, reducing movement speed by 1.1 times for 1 minute. With Lin Moyu's augmentations, the radius swelled to 3,300 meters, and the slowing effect was magnified to 33 times. The spearmen were instantly crippled, forced into a shuddering, slow-motion run. Even those with high agility, fighters who would normally move like competent level 20 pros, were brought to a crawl. To Lin Moyu, though, they still moved slowly enough. The skeleton mages concentrated their fire and opened their attack. Skeleton warriors poured out one after another, activating their abilities the instant they appeared. At their current pace, by the time anyone reached the front line, the skeleton mage could already fire off 2 volleys. With the bone soldiers blocking the way, there was no chance to force a breakthrough. Take one of them down, and the rest would fall within seconds. Suddenly, Lin Moyu's eyes went wide, and he blurted, "I'll go." Chapter 110, The Melon Eaters, Skeleton Warrior. From the groves on both sides, a huge number of dragon spearmen poured out. Each wore a bulky, fish-shaped shackle on its head, all of them under the effect of the slow curse. A line of dragon mages followed behind. Scanning the field, Lin Moyu realized there were easily hundreds of spearmen and more than 20 mages. "How could I have forgotten about the range?" he muttered. This was the first time he'd used his level 22 slow curse in combat. He'd completely overlooked its massive 3,300-meter radius. The spell reached across the groves on both sides and drew every monster inside its area. It was a great way to funnel them in, if painfully slow. The dragons moved as if through molasses, which gave Lin Moyu plenty of time to act. When the dragon spearmen activated their ability, his skeleton warriors fell back in an orderly retreat. Most of the skeletons managed to dodge the attack, but a few were a step too slow and were struck, collapsing into stunned states. Lin Moyu didn't give the dragon spearmen a chance to exploit that. He moved to protect his troops and counter the attackers at once. A scream cut through the air as the slow-motion dragon spearmen collapsed under the spell. Then the sky-wrenching explosion bloomed. Every dragon spearman who had been dragged in by the skeleton warriors was gone. Not a single one remained. Further off, the rest of the dragon spearmen and the dragon mages were still coming, but they were crawling forward in slow motion. Their movements had been slowed to 1/33rd speed, about what you'd expect from a novice, roughly level 20. Painfully sluggish. Lin Moyu waited until they shuffled into range of the skeleton mage, then resumed the attack. The skeleton warriors surged forward again, forming a human wall to hold the dragon spearmen at bay. Suddenly, a series of transparent shackles slid around the approaching enemies. Windbind. The dragon mages were repeatedly throwing out wind shackles, catching the spearmen one by one. The effect only robbed them of speed. It didn't stop them from using their skills. "They're so far away," Lin Moyu thought, startled. The nearest dragon mage was at least 300 meters from the skeleton front line, and still able to cast. That was a much greater reach than the skeleton mage had. At Black Iron rank, a skeleton mage's casting range is only 50 meters. At Bronze, it doubles to 100, and at Silver, it reaches 200. Even so, it's still shorter than a dragon mage's. For spellcasters, range is everything. More distance means more safety and the ability to kite. That's exactly what's happening now. 20 dragon mages keep spamming long-range skills, pinning the skeleton warriors in place before unleashing a rain of fire. Bound and unable to fight back, the skeletons can only take the blows. Their biggest weakness is a lack of counter skills, which makes them easy to restrain and pick off. "Tap to kill," Lin Moyu shouted, pointing as the dragon spearman surged forward. The skeleton mage tightened its focus and opened fire. The soul flame in Lin Moyu's hand flickered in time with the attack. The skeleton warriors were reduced to human shields, drawing the enemy's shots, but their tough bodies bought them a little time. The dragon mages had to work to finish them. 2 concentrated volleys from the skeleton mage, combined with the spirit branch flame that flickered in Lin Moyu's palm, tore through one of the dragon spearmen. The corpse then exploded. The explosion echoed through the dungeon, and the dragon spearman collapsed in a heap. Lin Moyu cursed. The range on corpse burst simply wasn't enough to reach the dragon mage. The dragon stood 300 meters away, unleashing an unending rain of fire while keeping the skeleton warriors under control from a distance. It never came closer. If there had been a knight, Lin thought, they could have provoked the dragon mage and drawn its attention. Knights with chain skills could even yank a distant caster into melee, and their and troll resistance makes wind bindings ineffective against them. Some mages would have been useful too. Silence spells can shut down a caster instantly. There weren't any of those options available now. There was only one choice left. Send the skeleton mage charging forward as quickly as possible and set the dragon mage on fire, while coordinating with the skeleton to use soul flame to interrupt the dragon's spells whenever possible. That was their only chance to force a head-to-head engagement. Until the dragon's control, or the wind bond broke, the bound skeleton warriors could do nothing to help. Lin Moyu could only stand there like a wooden stake, a helpless target. He couldn't even close the summoning field. That dungeon run was the toughest he'd ever faced. Choosing hell difficulty had been exactly as brutal as it sounded. If Bai Yuan had known Lin would pick hell, he probably would have choked on his own blood. By then, Bai Yuan had already returned to Xiajing Academy and to his little courtyard. Meng Anwen sat where he always did, sipping tea and staring off into the distance with an expression nobody could read. When Bai came in, Meng looked up, set the cup aside, and poured him a fresh cup. "Did you bring him back?" he asked. "Yes," Bai said. Meng Anwen gave him a pointed look. "So you really wanted to train him. You even had him branded in the Hall of Valor. Your 5-star rank will drop to 4. Bai had made a risky gamble. He didn't care about holding on to a 5-star title. To imprint Lin Moyu, he had spent a huge amount of military power and willingly accepted the downgrade from 5 stars to 4. Most people wouldn't know what it meant, but Guanwen knew exactly. On Lin Moyu's shoulder was a sergeant's badge, purple and gold, 5 stars glittering on it. Bai Yuan waved it off. "This kid has a future. We can't afford to let him die by accident. Our best people have been lost already. If we can prevent even one more death, that's one less to mourn." Meng Anwen, unbothered, sipped his tea. He probably went to the Dragon Outpost dungeon. He would have to. My mission was to snag some materials from the Dragon Clan. If he wanted to complete it, he'd have to go. Bai Yuan smiled, pleased with himself, as if he'd anticipated every move Lin Moyu made. Meng Anwen added slowly, "The material you want only drops from Yushao on nightmare difficulty, and the drop rate is very low." "That's exactly what I want," Bai Yuan said. "Doesn't that kid have a cooldown reset talisman? If he runs it 7 or 8 times, he'll get it." Meng Anwen shook his head in disbelief. "Tell me this, what if he chose hell difficulty?" Bai Yuan literally spat tea out of his mouth. Meng Anwen's face showed disbelief. "No way, this kid isn't that stupid." "How can you call him stupid?" Bai Yuan shot back. "He's confident. He's always been confident in himself, hasn't he? With Tyrant Desert able to handle 1 against 39, what couldn't he do?" Bai Yuan's expression darkened. I should have warned him. He can't go into a hell-level dungeon. Hell level is completely different from nightmare level. Meng Anwen smiled. If he goes in anyway, there's nothing we can do. We can't storm a hell-level dungeon to rescue him. Let fate take its course. Besides, you already put a mark on him. If he doesn't die, the worst that happens is he gets badly hurt. A flash of worry crossed Bai Yuan's eyes. His head ached. Why didn't I tell him? He muttered. Meng Anwen watched him with an even broader smile, clearly entertained. There weren't many things that could give Bai Yuan a headache these days, and Meng was quietly enjoying the sight. Meng Anwen lifted his freshly poured teacup to his nose and murmured, Have you ever thought about the possibility that he might actually clear a hell-level dungeon? Impossible, Bai Yuan blurted, his reaction immediate. He couldn't imagine Lin Moyu making it through a dungeon that hard. Meng Anwen fell quiet, sipping his tea and watching Bai Yuan. After a long pause, Bai Yuan's voice dropped. If he did manage it, the consequences would be enormous. In the dungeon, the combat log scrolled across the screen. Kill, level 31 Dragon Mage, EXP plus 620,000. Obtained, Horn of the Dragon Clan. At last, the Dragon Mages were wiped out. The Skeleton Mages took damage one after another. Lin Moyu pulled the survivors into his summoning space to heal and recover. From the battle, he also picked up 2 Dragon Horns and 20 Mage Horns. Rare drops, given how low the drop rates were. The skeleton warriors had mostly just stood there watching the fight. They were little more than spectators. Lin Moyu found a stretch of open ground and sat down to rest. The dungeon was only about a third cleared, and he had never worked so hard to run an instance. As he rested, he noticed the dungeon exit shimmering in the distance. After a long, grinding fight, the exit finally came into view. Lin Moyu stood there for a moment, stunned. Hell-level difficulty was far worse than he'd expected. It wasn't just that the monsters were stronger, their crowd control abilities were brutal, and those skills completely negated his usual fighting style. The outpost fortress in the distance seemed to sneer at him. Lin Moyu's mouth curved into a small, determined smile. Since he'd come this far, he wasn't about to turn back now. Whatever it took, he wanted to see what the dungeon's hell-level boss looked like. Quitting halfway wasn't in his nature. After a short rest, long enough for his skeleton mage to nearly recover, he started moving toward the fort again. The next 3,000 meters were empty. The slow curse he'd used earlier had pulled the surrounding monsters together, and by the time he reached that stretch, the path had been cleared. Now the fortress filled the horizon. From the vantage of a level 22 professional, he could make out the whole structure at once. Its design was strikingly similar to human architecture, down to familiar shapes and lines, but the air around it carried a subtle, unsettling feel. Dragonkin stood along the city wall, mages, archers, moving back and forth. The defense was tight. Lin Moyu felt a headache coming on. The mages were the worst part. They made everything more complicated. The only good thing was that the fortress gate was open instead of sealed. There were still plenty of dragon monsters outside the walls. First, clear out the dragon clan outside, he decided. He abandoned the old tactic of kiting and started picking them off one by one. In this situation, massing for a group kill wasn't necessarily faster, especially with enemy mages around. If a few more casters showed up, his skeleton warriors would be nothing more than decorations. He had to play it safe and exploit what his minions did best, capitalize on their numbers and stats through careful, controlled skirmishes. Slower, but more reliable. It felt a lot like the first time he'd run this instance. All right, he told himself, drop the speedrun mentality. Go back to basics. Use the original 4-skeleton formation that actually works. Chapter 111, Dragon Assassin, Extreme Attribute. Lin Moyu pushed his resentment aside and advanced methodically, thinning out the dragonkin that swarmed around the fortress. He picked them off cautiously, one group at a time. After an hour of careful clearing, there were finally no dragon monsters left outside the walls. Another dragon horn dropped from one of the carcasses. Bai Yuan's request had been clear. 4 kinds of dragon materials, 10 dragon hearts, 10 portions of dragon blood essence, 10 dragon horns, and 1 dragon crystal nucleus. So far, Lin Moyu had managed to collect 5 dragon horns, but none of the other items. Those particular materials were notoriously hard to come by. He doubted a single run through this place would be enough to satisfy the requirement. After a short rest, he checked his spiritual reserves. Leaving his spirit suit out of the calculation, his total spirit power was 3,300. He had 2,200 remaining, exactly 2/3. The cleanup had not burned much spirit power, but he hadn't recovered any either. He let his gaze travel up to the towering fortress, and an idea began to form. Two types of enemies manned the ramparts: archers and mages. Lin Moyu had already spotted the mage. He hadn't yet been seen by the archer, but this wouldn't be an easy fight. A few skeleton warriors charged forward, and Lin Moyu stared at the fortress without blinking. When they closed to roughly 300 meters, the fortress's dragon-bound garrison and its archers finally noticed the skeletons at the same instant. The dragon archers drew longbows and loosed sharp arrows. The dragon mage lifted his staff and wove a wind-binding spell. At Lin Moyu's command, the skeletons immediately turned and began to fall back. One arrow missed, but the wind-binding, as if guided, struck a skeleton and froze it in place. A second skeleton sprinted up, grabbed the immobilized one, and the pair fled. The dragon archers and mages leapt down from the battlements and gave chase, intent on driving the monsters out and cleaning them up. Once the dragon mage and an archer were lured away from the fortress, a swarm of skeleton warriors closed in and quickly surrounded them. Dragon archer, hell-level elite monster. Level 31, power 8,000, agility 1,000 HP, 3,000. Physique 8,000. Skills, arrow rain, bound arrow. Just from the skill names, Lin Moyu could tell the dragon archers had crowd control abilities. His choice to rely on skeletons had been the right one. Most of the monsters in this place used control skills, and in large numbers, his skeletons would be useless. They worked best in small groups, but even in limited numbers, their stats and damage output were still impressive. He pulled 2 archers out of the fortress at a time and let his skeletons surround and beat them down. Within seconds, the pair fell. Kill a level 31 dragon archer. Experience. Loot. Blood essence of the dragon clan. So that was where the dragon clan's blood essence came from. The archers. The mages dropped the horns. The archers dropped the blood. The level 30 spearmen had yielded nothing of value. Lin Moyu continued the same tactic, drawing monsters out of the fort and clearing them away in small batches. Half an hour later, the fort was empty. Finally done, Lin Moyu grinned. He already had 8 Dragon Clan horns and 4 vials of Dragon Clan blood essence. He clapped once and strode into the fortress. True to its name, the fort was tiny, more of an outpost than a stronghold. There wasn't much room inside. What struck him as odd was that, apart from a few archers posted on the battlements, there were no monsters in sight. He was still wondering about that when, without warning, one of his summoned skeleton warriors was struck. The blow was devastating. The skeleton crumpled as if hit by a battering ram. Startled, Lin Moyu reflexively recalled it into his summoning space. The recall succeeded. The skeleton vanished back into the pocket realm. At least, he thought, it hadn't been mind-controlled. It had simply been attacked. When he examined it there, the bones were crazed with cracks, as if they might shatter at any moment. The injury was severe. Had he hesitated even a few more seconds, the skeleton would almost certainly have been destroyed. Lin Moyu felt a chill. The strike had been devastating, worse than anything he'd seen. Even the world-class boss, the Lion Clan tyrant, had never dealt such massive damage to a skeleton warrior. Worse still, he couldn't tell where the attack had come from. The skeletons, usually so perceptive, hadn't spotted the assailant. That had never happened before. He slipped the skeleton armor back on, moving quietly to avoid drawing further blows. A few seconds later, another skeleton warrior was struck, badly injured. Lin Moyu immediately recalled the wounded figure. Then, as if in response, all the skeletons regrouped and concentrated their attention on him. An enemy who could not be seen was the most dangerous kind. The 2 attacks came about 10 seconds apart and were hundreds of meters away from each other. Both had used almost identical methods, and both had struck from behind. Either the attacker was unbelievably fast, or there was more than one. Whatever the case, he needed to warn the doctor. Things were starting to get complicated. Lin Moyu's eyes narrowed. The difficulty of this hell-level dungeon was worse than he'd imagined. It wasn't just the monsters' raw power or their numbers. What made it dangerous was their control skills. Those spells stopped his skeleton warriors from doing their jobs. Around him, the undead formed circles, skeleton mages and skeleton warriors in inner and outer rings, waiting, probing for an opening. Lin didn't move until he could identify the monster that would make the first strike. He slowed his breathing and settled himself, completely calm. After more than 10 seconds, another skeleton warrior was hit. Then, in an instant, 3 skeleton warriors were struck at once. Now, someone or something ordered, and Lin braced himself. As soon as the skeletons were attacked, the skeleton mages answered. Their spells fired within a hair of each other, less than 1/10 of a second apart. 2 offensive spells went up, Ice Storm and Tornado. Both covered a 10-meter radius and didn't need to lock on a specific target. Within the area, jagged ice began to fall from the sky while howling whirlwinds tore across the ground. When the 2 attacks connected, the ice curled through the air like a razor-sharp arrow. A few hazy shadows flickered into view. Under assault, the unknown enemy finally revealed itself. Nearby skeleton warriors exploded into action. A red glow flared along the broadsword as someone unleashed a skill, Frenzied Strike. Amid the cacophony of screams, the hidden creature stepped fully into the light. It was a dragonkin, sleek and deadly, clutching a dagger and clad in black light armor. An assassin? Lin Moyu's first thought was the word itself. He activated his detection technique, and the truth blinked across his vision. Hell level, elite mons level 32, strength 10,000, agility 10,000, spirit 2,000, constitution 5,000. Skills, invisibility, fatal blow. Those numbers were extreme. Strength and agility were off the charts, spirit was pitifully low, and constitution middling. Coupled with stealth and a fatal blow skill, its instantaneous burst damage was terrifying. One strike had already left a skeleton warrior grievously injured. Worse, this kind of creature could use skills while remaining concealed. Their attacks didn't force them out of stealth. An extraordinarily powerful monster. It was a pity they'd been discovered by Lin Moyu. Stealth breaks the moment you're hit. Once revealed, all their advantages vanished. Their frail constitutions became a fatal weakness. Under the concentrated fire of the skeleton warrior and the skeleton mage, the 3 dragon assassins died in an instant. Kill a level 32 dragon assassin. Experience, obtain, Heart of the Dragon Clan. Lin Moyu felt a small, satisfied smile. So that was it. The Heart of the Dragon Clan came from the Dragon Clan assassins. Different classes dropped different trophies. Mages gave up horns, archers bled out blood, assassins surrendered their hearts. The crystal core, however, was still a mystery. He peered into the depths of the fortress. Darkness hung over the place, and an eerie silence reigned. At the very center lay a square, the final chamber of the instance. No dragons had appeared along the way, but Lin Moyu knew better than to be complacent. There should be many 1.7 assassins hiding in the shadows of every corner, waiting for the chance to strike. There was no longer any scattering of roles. The skeleton warrior took position outside, the skeleton mage guarded inside, and Lin Moyu stood at the core. The procession marched along the fort exactly as Lin Moyu had expected, and sure enough, they were ambushed again. The skeleton mage reacted quickly, laying down ranged spells that forced the assassins into the open one by one. The skeleton warrior then focused his attacks and tore one of them apart instantly. The surprise hit left the skeleton warrior badly injured, but for Lin Moyu the situation remained manageable. The summoned skeletons had no crowd control abilities to worry about, and any wounds could be mended back in the summoning space. As long as they didn't die outright, they would recover quickly. At last, the team reached the dungeon's final chamber and confronted the boss. Dragon motifs were carved into the rock wall behind the plaza, so lifelike it seemed a dragon might take flight at any moment. In the center of the square stood a 10-meter-tall stone statue, shaped like a draconic monster. When Lin Moyu stepped forward, the whole fort trembled. The statue cracked and showers of stone fragments fell like rain. The boss began to stir, slowly reviving. Chapter 112, Unlimited Control is Simply Cheating. A chilling breath seeped from the stone statue and spread through the entire dungeon. Lin Moyu's breath hitched, an oppressive aura, one that came from rank, pressed down on him and made his skin crawl. He flicked on his detection skill. The Guardian's attributes appeared before his eyes. Outpost Guardian, Hell level 33, Power, 15,000, Agility, 13,000, Intelligence, 10,000, Physique, 15,000. Skills, Group Knockback, Group Stun, Resistance Enhancement. Each primary attribute was in the 10,000s. At first glance, the numbers didn't look as flashy as the skeleton warriors, but this was a boss. Its enormous vitality and a physique of 15,000 gave it staggering defenses. Killing it would be extremely difficult. Both Group Knockback and Group Stun were crowd control skills, and with resistance enhancement on top of that, Lin Moyu felt his headache deepen. In the Hell Dungeon, his skeletons had already suffered enough from being controlled. He couldn't afford to be caught in another mass control effect. He withdrew at once, putting at least 500 meters between himself and the Guardian. A red light pulsed in his palm as he prepared for whatever came next. The stone statue shattered, and the Guardian's roar split the sky. A vast crimson net unfurled overhead, and with a low, resonant hum, a scarlet shackle materialized above the Guardian's head. Its bellow dragged out unnaturally long, its motion suddenly reduced to 1/33 their usual speed, every action painfully slowed. Before it could recover, the skeleton warriors surged forward. A ghostly light flashed across them, and they unleashed their abilities in unison. Blades whispered through the air as dozens of skeletons used the skill called Crazy Blow, while the skeleton mages sent spell after spell to rain down on the hulking Guardian. By the time the roar finally died away, the Guardian's massive form was swarmed, skeletons clinging to its torso and thronging around its feet. More than 100 broadswords rose and fell against its scaled armor, striking metal on metal with an unending chorus of clangs and ringing impacts. The Guardian's defenses held. There was no blood, only the relentless clash of steel on scale. Lin Moyu expected some damage, but not much. The skeleton warrior was only level 22, the boss was level 33, 11 levels higher, and a hell-tier boss at that, far stronger than a nightmare boss of the same level. The dungeon's base level was 26, and he had deliberately taken it at the highest difficulty, a hell-level dragon monster dungeon. The Guardian's roar faded, and it looked down at the skeleton warrior at its feet. Lin's curse had slowed the Guardian so severely that its movements were almost in slow motion. By the time it lowered its head, the skeletons had already struck several times. There were over 100 skeleton warriors. Together, their attacks added up to several million points of damage. The skeleton mage's spell had been cast twice. Each hit wasn't huge on its own, but the total was significant. Anger twisted the Guardian's face, and there was a flash of cunning intelligence in its eyes, far sharper than most dragon monsters. A brilliant light suddenly burst from its body as it activated a skill, Resist Enhancement. The crimson shackles above the Guardian's head immediately faded a few shades. They were still there, but no longer so bright, the curse's hold visibly weakened. The outpost Guardian's movements suddenly sped up. But good, Lin Moyu thought, but kept it to himself and instantly tried to lay a slow curse on the sentinel. It had no effect. The Guardian was wrapped in a veil of light, the spell barely took hold and was almost nullified. With a rasping sound, the giant drew the enormous blade from its back, a cleaver 6 meters long and a full meter wide. It swept through the air like a gale. Ability, Mass Knockback. The blade's arc struck every skeleton clinging to its feet and body. Without exception, they were hurled backward. The force was huge. The nearest sentries were blown at least 20 meters away. Before the dust could settle, the Guardian leapt high. The blade flashed, and when it slammed into the ground a second time, a shockwave rolled outward. Ability, Group Stun. This hit even wider than the first attack. The blast swept across a 50-meter radius. All the skeleton warriors in range went rigid at once, their bones clattering as the stun froze them in place. The skeleton warrior went limp again, frozen in place like a wooden stake. When the outpost Guardian shook off whatever had been controlling him, he immediately turned his attention back to the unmoving skeleton warrior and began to strike. The Guardian's huge blade fell again and again, each blow sending a series of loud clicks through the skeleton's frame. The skeleton warrior was clearly getting damaged, but its stats were high enough to endure the punishment for now. The sentry-type guardians excelled at control effects, not raw damage. After all, as the boss's outpost guardian, his offensive power didn't match that of the dragon assassin. Lin Moyu backed up another distance, holding about 500 meters from the guardian. His skeleton warriors couldn't move or be recalled into the summoning space, so he switched tactics and commanded the skeleton mage to go all out. The mage unleashed a barrage of spells that rained down in brilliant explosions, forcing the guardian to take hits and shifting his focus away from the battered skeleton warrior. With a flash of steel, the guardian lunged straight at the skeleton mage. The broadsword flared with light, another area stun. Lin Moyu barely had time to register it before he was moving. He snapped the commands and pulled every skeleton mage back into the summoning space. The guardian of the outpost staggered, his broadsword clattered to the ground, sending out a concussive shockwave. For a moment, the guardian looked baffled. His targets had simply vanished. He spun and began attacking the nearest skeleton warrior again. That skeleton was taking heavy damage. Cracks spidered across the bones. It looked like it might come apart any second. The guardian pummeled it until the stun wore off, 30 brutal seconds later. As soon as the effect faded, a fresh wave of skeleton warriors poured forward and surrounded the defender. Lin Moyu withdrew the wounded skeleton at the exact moment the crowd control ended, then freed the skeleton mage again and ordered it to keep as far away as possible. No sooner had the mage appeared than the outpost guardian leapt up, blade flashing, and drove the broadsword straight at the distant caster. Another offensive skill. Lin Moyu was faster. He recalled the mage back into the summoning space before the strike could connect. Another shockwave rolled outward. Lin Moyu had moved so fast that the skeleton mages were already finished, and he himself was unhurt. The outpost guardian looked baffled. Its minions had been there a moment ago, and then suddenly vanished. Then pain flashed across its form as a skeleton warrior darted back in and slashed at it with a blade. The guardian flared again. A shockwave knocked the rushing skeletons backward, and immediately after it unleashed a group stun. The skeleton warriors went dizzy and lost the ability to fight back. "It's not over, is it?" Lin Moyu muttered, annoyed. The guardian's raw attack power wasn't the problem so much as its control skills. They were infuriating. At first glance, it seemed like the stun had no cooldown, but Lin Moyu guessed there was one, just very short, maybe 10 seconds. While the stun itself lasted about 30. A short recharge paired with a long disable window meant near constant control. It felt like cheating. He hadn't known this before. Now he understood why Bai Yuan had been certain they couldn't get through. Lin Moyu rolled his eyes and released the summons again. 233 skeleton mages called up by the skull method burst forth, scattering in all directions. They spread out to form a ring around the outpost guardian, nearly 400 meters across, with the guardian trapped at the center. From every vector, the skeletons hurled spells at the guardian. Because they were so widely spaced, the guardian could only seize control of 2 or 3 of them at a time. Lin let out a relieved breath. Finally, he'd found a way to handle it. Then, in the next instant, his blood ran cold. The guardian lifted its head and locked its gaze on him. Even with its limited intelligence, it knew the simplest way to deal with summoned creatures: kill the summoner. With a thunderous crack, the ground split, and the guardian vaulted skyward, hurtling straight for Lin Moyu. Damn it! He hadn't expected the guardian to target him so quickly, and at his current speed there was no time to dodge. Lin Moyu risked everything, summoning another layer of bone armor around himself while a flame flickered in his palm. Skill, soul flame. The outpost guardian in midair gave a scream, but it didn't slow him down. His blade erupted in light. Skill, group stun. The enormous knife slammed down just 10 meters from Lin Moyu. The shockwave rolled outward, but the bone armor along Lin Moyu's body flared with a silvery white sheen. He felt no dizziness. For a moment he was stunned. Then he understood. The bone armor had blocked the shockwave. So it wasn't just for damage mitigation. It could also resist control effects. A grin spread across his face. New possibilities opened up in his mind. Chapter 113, Amazing Harvest, title of King of the Dragon Race. The bone armor kept flashing, repeatedly absorbing the outpost guardian's blows. Every attack struck the armor and vanished as if swallowed by the sea. None of them reached Lin Moyu. He continued pouring soul flame into his skeleton mages, hammering at the guardian, but never in his life had he imagined becoming a human shield. That bone armor was absurdly strong, roughly the equivalent of 64,000 points of physical defense. It resisted abnormal status effects and ignored control skills too. When the guardian's ability finally wore off after 30 seconds, the skeleton warriors reformed. Lin's mind raced. He recalled them all back into his summoning space in an instant. Thinking faster, he rematerialized a skeleton right at the guardian's side and, without hesitation, sent it lunging with a cleaving strike. The guardian roared and activated its skill again, trying to stun the attacking group. The instant the guardian began casting, Lin withdrew every summoned fighter. A giant sword slammed into the ground, sending a shockwave outward. But the skeletons weren't there. They had been pulled back into safety the moment the guardian unleashed its power. Only Lin Moyu remained in the clearing. His bone armor shrugged off the guardian's shockwave with ease. As the blast passed, he sent his skeleton warriors forward to strike again. He watched the outpost guardian like a hawk. Whenever the guardian readied a skill, Lin Moyu immediately recalled the skeletons. When the skill finished and its cooldown began, he released them again. By timing attacks to slip into the gaps between the guardian's abilities, the skeletons still managed to deal significant damage. Repeating the pattern, Lin Moyu forced the outpost guards into his rhythm of combat. The guardian's wounds deepened, and its control skills were useless against the bone armor. With its limited intelligence, it had no way to understand why this small, unassuming opponent could ignore its attempts at control. Lin Moyu dictated the tempo of the fight. When to send the skeletons, when to pull them back, when to refresh his bone armor, all while keeping the soul flame intact. He was a living shield, deliberately drawing the enemy's fire so the rest could operate. With each cycle, Lin Moyu's actions grew smoother and more efficient. The battle marked a major breakthrough for Lin Moyu. He was no longer completely reliant on his skeleton warriors. They'd become self-sufficient. And he finally understood that he was both a summoner and a mage. He couldn't keep fighting every fight as a pure summoner. After a brutal 15 minutes of attrition, the outpost guardian, begrudgingly, collapsed before him. System notification. Kill the outpost guardian. Experience plus 3,300,000. Obtained gold tier weapon. Hell outpost dagger. Obtained gold tier armor. Hell outpost shield. Obtained gold tier jewelry. Hell outpost bracelet. Obtained Dragon Clan Crystal Nucleus 2. Obtained Job Transfer Certificate. Title acquired, King of the Dragon Race. A pure white glow, the hallmark of a level up, washed over him. After nearly 10 hours of soloing the Hell level dungeon, Lin Moyu leveled up again. The drops explained why his effort had paid off. Hell Outpost Dagger, Outpost Set, Gold Tier Weapon. All attributes plus 500. Assassin skills plus 50%. Usable above level 30. Hell Outpost Shield, Outpost Set. Gold Tier Armor. All attributes plus 300. Control resistance 50%. Control durations reduced by 50%. Usable above level 30. Hell Outpost Bracelet. Outpost Set. Gold Jewelry. All attributes plus 200. Mana recovery speed 30%. Usable above level 30. Dragon's Crystal Nucleus. An extremely rare material used to craft various items. Professional Transfer Voucher. Required for a second job transfer for each class. Can only drop in Hell level dungeons. Soulbound and non-tradable. Title. Dragon Warrior King. All attributes 500. Skill costs reduced by 50%. This title is awarded to a single player who solo clears the dragon, frontline outpost, on Hell difficulty. Lin Moyu stood there, the glow fading, inventory heavy with rewards, proof that the brutal 10-hour grind had been worth it. In less than a day on the Yuan battlefield, he jumped from level 22 to 23, an astonishingly fast rise. Lin Moyu didn't bother checking the level up screen. Instead, he examined the items he'd picked up. Even with his usually cool-headed manner, he felt a flicker of surprise. He'd seen that dragon dungeon weapon listed before in the exchange at Fortress No. 1. Weapons from the dragon frontline outpost follow a specific naming convention. Ordinary Outpost Weapons and Nightmare Outpost Weapons. Both drop from the same dungeon, the Dragon Frontline Outpost, but the ordinary versions come from normal difficulty, while the Nightmare versions come from Nightmare difficulty. Both are gold tier items, but their stats are very different, and their market prices can vary wildly. Ordinary Outpost Weapons are mid-level gold gear, about 300,000 gold and no rank requirement to buy. Nightmare Outpost Weapons are effectively top gold level equipment, going for 1.5 to 2 million gold and restricted to soldiers of at least 5-star private rank. The Hellpost Weapons stats had long since outclassed gold-grade gear. It was effectively platinum tier. That applied to the armor as well. Being able to equip platinum-level weapons and armor at level 30 would be a huge boost to combat power. Lin Moyu had never seen any Hellpost gear in the exchange. The Hell Dungeon was just too difficult, so few people ran it that its drops rarely surfaced on the market. Most teams simply kept and distributed the loot among themselves, and very little ever made it to trade. The Dragon Crystal Nucleus was exactly what Bai Yuan needed for his mission. Now Lin Moyu understood why there were so few of them. They were boss drops from the dungeon, and only 5 copies existed. He had already completed part of Bai Yuan's requirements. 1 Hell-level run yielded 8 Dragon Horns, 4 Dragon Blood Essences, 4 Dragon Hearts, and 2 Dragon Crystal Nuclei, already more than a third of what was needed. If he cleared the dungeon twice, he could meet Bai Yuan's demands. After that, all that remained were the transfer certificates. It came as a complete surprise. Lin Moyu had managed to get the certificate required for the second job transfer. He had always assumed that changing jobs a second time was extremely difficult. After all, the job transfer voucher is a necessity, non-transferable, and something you have to earn yourself. That's why so many players hit a wall at level 40 when they need to do the second transfer but can't obtain the voucher. And there was more. He hadn't expected to get a title from a single dungeon clear, but that's exactly what had happened. Titles in this world were rare and powerful, and uniquely bound. Once one person claimed a given title, nobody else could take it while that person lived. For Lin Moyu, that meant he was now recorded as the first person in the world to solo the Hell-level Dragon Frontline Outpost. Given his unusually control-heavy, almost extreme playstyle, it made a grim kind of sense that he'd be the one to pull it off. The new title was Dragon King. Its effects were outrageous, every attribute increased by 500, and all skill consumption reduced by 50%. The bonus was absurdly strong and would make a huge difference in everything he did. The title also cut skill consumption by half, which made using Soul Flame to detonate corpses far more efficient. Even when he only used it to replenish skeleton warriors and skeleton mages, the improvement in efficiency was obvious. He couldn't wait to activate the title and checked his attributes. Name, Lin Moyu. Occupation, Necromancer. Level 23.18%. Title, King of the Dragon Race. All attributes 500, skill consumption reduced by 50%. Strength, 390, plus 500. Agility, 390. Intelligence, 1900 to 100. Physique, 390. Equipment, Spiritual Longsword, Spiritual Robe, Spiritual Ring. Summoning space, 210. 230 Skeleton Warrior. Quantity, 140. Skeleton Mage, 700. Talent, Comprehensive Amplification, Level 3, Unique. Passive skills, Damage Transfer, Elemental Resistance, Level 1. Active skills, Soul Flame, Level 23. Summon Skeleton Warrior, Level 23. Corpse Burst, Level 3. Slow Curse, Level 23. Bone Armor, Level 23. Summon Skeleton Mage, Level 23. Comprehensive Amplification, Level 3. All skill effects are increased 30-fold. The Necromancer's skill panel flashed open, listing every power and passive trait he currently possessed. Damage Transfer, Passive. Any damage the wizard would suffer is redirected to his summoned object. Elemental Resistance, Level 1 Passive. Increases elemental resistance by 10% for both the caster and any summoned objects. Soul Flame, Level 23. Ignites the target's soul, causing burning damage. The strength of the burn scales with the caster's mental power and this skill's level. Summon Skeleton Warrior, Level 2. Summons a silver rank Skeleton Warrior. Corpse Burst, Level 3. Detonates a corpse, dealing damage equal to 20% of that corpse's HP to all enemies within a 3-meter radius. Slow Curse, Dijiao, level 23. Curses enemies within 115 meters, reducing their movement speed by a factor of 1.15 for 1 minute. Skeleton Armor, level 23. Raises a set of bone armor that grants 2,300 points of physical defense for 5 minutes. This skill can be cast on allies as well as the caster. Summon Skeleton Mage, level 2. Summons a silver rank Skeleton Mage. All of these skills gain attribute bonuses as his level rises. The Necromancer's hidden traits and any skills that match his current level are automatically upgraded whenever his overall level increases. The shortcut saved Lin Moyu a lot of time on skill training. After reaching level 23, his 4-dimensional Skeleton Warrior stats climbed to 16,500, and the Skeleton Mage's spirit attribute hit 33,000. Their combat power had increased significantly again. Go out and rest. Come back when the skeleton has recovered, the system suggested. It's still set to hell difficulty, Lin muttered. Bai Yuan's quest wasn't finished, so they had to keep the session going. Hell was brutal to play, but it rewarded far more experience and better loot. They were planning to use a cooldown talisman anyway. It made far more sense to burn it on a hell-level run than waste it on a nightmare dungeon. The moment he stepped out of the instance, a strong metallic smell of blood hit his nose, and a distant roar pounded in his ears. Skeleton armor flashed, and silver light shot up into the sky. Chapter 114. Abyssal monsters are really cost-effective. The smell of blood, the roar of beasts, the glint of bone armor. Lin Moyu stumbled out of the dungeon straight into the middle of a battlefield. Abyssal dogs latched onto him from every side, snapping and tugging. The area around the dungeon entrance had been completely transformed since he first went in. Tree stumps and broken limbs littered the ground, and abyssal dogs filled the clearing as far as the eye could see. Human teams were boxed in, locked in desperate fights for their lives. An ice bolt streaked past, sweeping one of the dogs aside like a lash. Then a sharp, glowing arrow flew in, striking another beast with a thunderous impact that sent several nearby dogs sprawling. "Young man, over here!" someone shouted. With that, Senhan's blade flashed, and another abyssal dog went flying. The knight who had recruited Lin Moyu earlier, and his squad surged forward. Seeing Lin Moyu appear at the dungeon mouth and the dog clamping onto him, they didn't hesitate. They cut the beast down and hauled him to safety. In truth, Lin Moyu had spotted them long before. He was simply taking in the whole battlefield. You must know yourself and your enemy to win every fight. With his bone armor up and damage transfer in effect, Lin was nearly unhurt even if he stood still and let the abyss dog bite him. What surprised him was how quickly help arrived. It was the 7-star veteran who'd insisted on joining the dungeon earlier. Lin's first impression, a good man. "Young man, snap out of it," the knight barked, already barreling forward and planting his shield between Lin and the abyss dog. A mage, an archer, a support prophet, and a senior healer trailed behind him, a textbook 5-man group. The healer glanced at Lin's status, level 153, and reported, "No injuries." The knight let out a relieved breath. "We'll hold the abyss dog. Use your teleportation stone and get back to the fort." He didn't ask how Lin had managed to come out of the dungeon alive. There wasn't time for questions. Lin Moyu asked, "What happened?" "The abyss unleashed a pack of wild dogs to surround us." The veteran's voice was hard, threaded with hatred for the abyss. Lin Moyu looked him over. He could tell at a glance that these people had excellent gear, strong skills, and sharp combat instincts. Together, they made a very dangerous team. Still, he asked, "Then why aren't you leaving?" "Many people were ambushed when they came out of the dungeon earlier," the team's medic said. "Several were killed in the surprise attack. Our kind-hearted captain refused to leave. He wanted to try to save them." There was a hint of ridicule in her tone, but no fear. She didn't seem to take the abyssal dog seriously. A white sergeant's badge on her uniform flashed 5 stars. The rest of the team wore similar insignia. They were all veterans, battle-hardened by encounters with all kinds of abyssal monsters, and they treated the abyss demon dogs as little more than annoying pests. Archers, mages, and knights formed a tight battle circle and easily drove off the rushing abyss hound. A scream came from farther down the corridor. Someone was hurt. One of the archer's eyes flashed as he activated his eagle eye skill to get a clear look. "It's the Sakura country team. Someone's had an arm bitten off," he reported. "One arm? That's fine. It'll grow back," another player said dismissively. "As long as you don't die, a senior therapist can restore a lost limb after we get back. Losing an arm or a leg isn't the problem, dying is." Lin Moyu felt a flash of annoyance at the mention of Sakura country. Ever since the Mermaid Island fight, he still hadn't warmed to them. The Prophet produced a dungeon detector and checked it over. The readout came back clean, no one left alive in the dungeon. The knight's face tightened. "We're ready to break out," he said. Without a word, the Prophet began quietly topping up everyone's status buffs. "We might not have time to prepare once we break out," he warned as he worked. The team readied themselves. The head healer, who was overseeing casualties, glanced at Lin Moyu and offered, "Why don't you head back to the fort?" Lin Moyu chuckled. "I still need to brush up." A gust of wind swept through, and a horde of skeletons materialized before them. A skeletal warrior rushed into the fray the instant it appeared, hefting a massive blade that came down on the abyss demon dog. Skeletal mages began chanting, and the sky erupted with fire and ice. Tornadoes lifted the beast into the air and tore at it while lightning and thunder rained down, battering it to pieces. "What the?" someone shouted. "What is going on?" Those who were about to leap into the fight froze. Why had so many skeletons appeared out of nowhere? The Prophet, who had been in the middle of powering up, nearly lost his breath as his concentration was abruptly broken and his skill interrupted. The Abyss Demon Dog had no control abilities to respond. The skeletal warrior moved with brutal efficiency, striking like a merciless swordsman. Its blade cleaved the creature apart. The Abyss Demon Dog died on the spot. Several of them stared at Lin Moyu, mouths open, unable to find words. All they felt was disbelief. Against those skeletons, the Abyss Demon Dog had been utterly helpless. Soon, a wide space had been cleared around them. "Stand behind me," Lin Moyu said suddenly. "Why?" someone asked. A few people paused, confused. Lin Moyu answered quietly, "I'm going to use an area attack. I don't want to risk hitting any of you." Only then did they understand. They looked at him with new wariness and quickly moved to form a protective line behind him. Lin Moyu lifted his hand and targeted the corpse of an abyssal hound. Skill, corpse burst. An explosion ripped outwards. The ground trembled and bodies were hurled in every direction. A gale of hot wind screamed through the clearing, scattering dust and debris. When the blast subsided, a wide swath of the battlefield lay empty of living beasts. Nothing left but the broken corpses of abyssal dogs. He stepped forward, and the others fell in behind him, keeping their distance. Each time Lin Moyu advanced, he would lock onto another corpse and unleash corpse burst. The line moved fast, a trail of detonations cutting through the hound ranks. Waves of abyssal dogs were annihilated, and the sergeant badge on Lin Moyu's shoulder began to gleam. As the death toll for Abyss Demon Hound climbed to 100, a single star appeared on the badge. At almost the same instant, the communicator on his wrist buzzed. At least 100 military merits, promotion to 1-star private, 1,000 points, 5 contribution points. Lin Moyu stared at the message on his communicator, and a slow grin crept across his face. Killing abyssal monsters didn't just raise your rank in the army, it also earned Kongjing Academy points and contribution credits. No wonder they'd said you had to go to the Yuan battlefield if you wanted to earn contribution points. That was the whole point. The academy existed to train top talent for humanity. If those skilled fighters weren't sent to the Yuan battlefield to clear out the abyss, what would be the point of hoarding them for retirement? 1,000 points and a promotion were nothing to scoff at. Abyss monsters were unbelievably cost-effective. Experience, materials, items, military merits, academy points, and contribution credits, everything was on the table. Lin Moyu made up his mind. After he finished Bai Yuan's mission, he'd head straight back into the abyss and farm monsters. It would be a shame not to take advantage of an opportunity like this. Lin Moyu kept using Corpse Explosion. Each blast wiped out another Great Abyss Demon Dog. In just a few minutes, he had earned 100 military merits. His service badge flashed, and another star appeared on it. His rank had been upgraded to a 2-star private. The communicator on his wrist vibrated at once, confirming the promotion and outlining the requirements for the next rank. By then, 2/3 of the abyssal dogs swarming the dungeon had been taken down by Lin Moyu alone. The remaining packs were still pressing the human defenders, and corpse explosion was no longer a safe option. Its power was immense, but too indiscriminate. One misdirected blast could easily cause catastrophic friendly casualties. It would be no accident, but manslaughter. So he held back. The skeleton warrior rushed forward instead, mowing through the dogs like a scythe through wheat, cutting them down one after another with steady efficiency. Before long, the last abyss demon dog fell. Lin Moyu's military merits climbed to 272, a solid gain, but still just short of the requirement for the next promotion. Lin Moyu had killed 242 abyssal dogs. When the dust settled, people lay scattered across the ground, spent and panting. Thank God, someone sighed. Finally saved. Why were there so many of those things? Do you think the abyss is mounting another attack? Another asked. You're overthinking it, a third replied. There are just a lot of wild abyssal dogs out there. They swarm like pests sometimes. Fights like this aren't just happening here, someone else muttered. There must be similar battles all along the front. Hopefully the fortress garrison is doing something, another added. If they don't, the Yuan front will be impossible to move through. Don't worry about that now, a veteran snapped. Patch up what needs patching and send everyone who can back where they belong. Several of the wounded were in bad shape, arms or legs missing. They hurriedly activated their teleportation stones to return to town and find healers. The sooner they received treatment, the better. Lin Moyu collected his skeleton companion and headed back toward the instant's exit. As he walked, a knight approached him with an easy smile. Young man, allow me to introduce myself, the knight said. I'm Shi Xing'an, paladin, level 31 from Xiajing Academy, he announced. Lin Moyu replied quietly. Lin Moyu, level 23, Necromancer, also from Xiajing Academy. When Shi Xing'an heard they attended the same school, his smile widened. So you're from my academy. You're a junior? Which class are you in? Lin Moyu glanced at the clock. It was already early morning. I'm new this year. I only came for the opening ceremony yesterday. Shi's surprise was audible. What? He started, and the shield in his hand slipped and clattered to the floor. Chapter 115, Hell-Level Outpost, definitely not built by humans. The outpost loomed ahead like an accusation. Its walls were pitted and blackened, jutting spires twisting into impossible angles. The air trembled with a low metallic hum that made the hairs on Xing'an's arms stand up. It didn't feel like any fortress built by men. It felt older, crueler. Xing'an's eyes went wide. His teammates mirrored him, one stunned expression reflecting in another. They looked at each other as if to say, Did you see that? Are we hallucinating? All of them were from Xiajing Academy, Lin Moyu's seniors. They had seen their fair share of battlefield horrors, but this was on another level. Freshmen didn't end up here. Freshmen certainly didn't show up looking like this. At Xiajing, the progression was almost ritual. Attend the opening ceremony, learn from seniors, train diligently, complete assigned tasks, earn the right to enter the dungeon hall, and grind for levels. Only after that did you take on real missions, patrols on the Yuan battlefield, college trials, or regiment raids through places like the Tyrant Desert. A freshman might assist on a reconnaissance detail at best. They wouldn't be the kind of threat that made hardened veterans stare slack-jawed. Xing'an swallowed hard. He tried to line up what he'd seen with what made sense, and there was no overlap. How could a new student be this powerful? How could one of their own, fresh into the academy system, walk into the Yuan battlefield and leave everyone rattled? He watched the newcomer more closely now. Dark robes, eerily calm, and the smell, a faint coppery tang like rain on old bone. Horrible little things skittered at the edge of his vision, animated scraps of cloth and shadow that moved with a purpose that was almost deliberate. One of Xing'an's teammates couldn't hold it in. He forced his throat to work and asked, voice tight, Student, your class is a necromancer? Why haven't I heard of this before? Someone asked. Lin Moyu answered quietly, It's a new profession. That explained it. No wonder it was unfamiliar. A nurse and senior sister approached them. She wore the tag of an elder. Student, your profession is incredible. Let me introduce myself. My name is Liang Yu, level 31, job, Elf Elder. Lin Moyu nodded. Hello, senior. Liang Yu smiled kindly. You saved us back there. We thought we could manage the breakthrough ourselves, but it would have taken a lot of effort, and probably a fight. We might have gotten hurt. How could it have been so easy otherwise? Lin Moyu shrugged. It's our duty to hunt the monsters of the abyss. At that, Shi Xing'an's opinion of Lin Moyu rose noticeably. Shi Xing'an barked, Junior Lin's right. Hunting the abyss monsters is our job as professionals. When I'm level 40 and finish my second awakening, I'll go into the abyss and hunt those monsters myself. A few others on the team nodded in agreement. Liang Yu snorted. Easy to say. Getting to level 40 isn't the hard part. It's the second-tier missions that are tough. The Hell Dungeon isn't something you clear on a whim. Xing'an waved him off confidently. Don't worry about that now. First, we need to make some money. We should try to get promoted to lieutenant before we hit level 40, he continued. By then we can learn new skills, swap to platinum-tier gear, and recruit a few more people. With that setup, I'm sure we can beat the Hell Dungeon. I know where it is. It's right on the border of the Shengxia Empire. The dungeon's not hard. It's pretty straightforward to clear. Liang Yu frowned, thinking for a moment. You mean the level 35 dungeon on the border with the Bangzi Kingdom? That's the one. Liang Yu nodded. That dungeon really isn't difficult. The problem is the Bangzi teams. They often camp the entrance and won't let us in. Then there's nothing to worry about, Shi Xing'an said easily. If they try to block the gate, we'll just beat them. He didn't take the Bangzi Kingdom seriously. The Shengxia Empire shared a border with Bangzi, and clashes between veteran teams from the two nations were common. This particular instance had spawned right on the border, so Bangzi's elites frequently set up at the entrance to keep Shengxia players out. Skirmishes erupted between the sides almost every time. Bangzi's territory was tiny compared with Shengxia's, more than 100 times smaller, so it had far fewer instances and scarce resources. Shengxia, by contrast, had plenty of dungeons and abundant supplies, which made the border fights a regular occurrence. In the Shengxia Empire, professional players had far more leeway than those from the Bangzi Kingdom. The local Shengxia officials usually turned a blind eye. A little scuffle was tolerable, so long as nobody died. Shi Xing'an's loud voice drew attention. A few experienced players glanced over and noticed the newcomer's clothing wasn't from Shengxia. Shi Xing'an stared them down without ceremony and barked. What are you staring at? If you're not satisfied, come and say it to my face. The player he'd addressed flinched and backed away. Shi Xing'an snorted in contempt. He's from Bangzi Kingdom, clearly looking for trouble. Must be itching for a beating. People nearby resumed their chatter. Lin Moyu wasn't sure which dungeon run they were referring to, so he didn't join in. He just sat quietly, letting his HP and stamina recover while he prepared for the next instance. That last run had been brutal, almost 10 straight hours of fighting. He deliberately avoided using a fatigue potion. Those were for emergencies, not something to rely on. They relit their fires in front of the dungeon entrance, talking and laughing as if nothing unusual had happened. In the Yuan battlefield, seasoned professionals were hard to shake. Few things surprised them. From time to time, other teams drifted over and joined the circle. Besides the contingents from the Shengxia Empire, several squads from other nations were camped nearby. Teams tended to group by country. Shengxia people kept to themselves, while foreigners operated separately. The other professionals had all seen what Lin Moyu had done, skeletons cutting through the enemies in a ruthless sweep, and watched him with quiet awe. They whispered among themselves and glanced over now and then, but none of them dared to get too close. The battlefield here had its own strange habits. The corpse of the abyssal hound had already vanished. The earth of the Yuan battlefield seemed like an invisible mouth, swallowing corpses quickly after death until nothing remained. Shi Xing'an built a small fire of his own, took out the food he'd prepared earlier, and began to roast it over the flames. Settling in as the others did, Shi Xing'an produced a small bottle of wine. Junior brother Lin, want some? Lin Moyu waved his hand. I don't drink. Shi Xing'an looked disappointed. This isn't ordinary wine. It's medicinal wine made by a gourmet. It chases away fatigue and speeds up recovery. We always take a few sips after a fight. It works really well. Liang Yue nudged the bottle into Lin Moyu's palm. Even though it smells like alcohol, it won't make you drunk. Lin Moyu turned the bottle over and read the brief description in the exchange. Delicious fruit wine, fragrant and tasty, relieves fatigue and restores vigor. That was it, a single line. He'd never seen anything like it in the market before. He did know that gourmets were a life-class profession. They crafted all kinds of delicacies, some with special effects beyond mere flavor. He took a cautious sip. The wine was sweet and pleasant. After a few mouthfuls, his wariness eased noticeably. It felt a lot like a fatigue potion, only milder. It reduced and improved his fatigue rather than wiping it away completely. We're going into the next dungeon later. Junior brother Lin, are you coming with us? Xingyan asked, flipping a strip of meat on the spit and glancing at Lin Moyu. Lin Moyu shook his head. I'll go on my own. He volunteered to join and was turned down. Xingyan knew Lin's skeletal sumo, N was very powerful. Maybe he really could solo the place, so he didn't push. All right, he said. Just don't pick hell difficulty next time. It's not meant for humans. Even an elite 12-man team has a hard time there. You lasted in there that long? I'm honestly impressed, Liang Yue said. Yeah, he continued. The monsters inside are all control type, and they're a nightmare. Last time their skills never stopped, and the endless healing wore me out. He jabbed a thumb toward Shi. It was mostly this guy's fault. His gear wasn't good enough. His skills weren't up to snuff, and he couldn't handle a single mob. He nearly died. Shi Xing'an hurried to defend himself. Hey, blame me if you want, but I was only level 29 then. I hadn't unlocked the level 30 skills yet, and I was stuck in silver gear. I'd only find it weird if I were any good at fighting, Liang Yuejiao snorted. That hell-level outpost really doesn't seem built for people. Shi Xing'an rubbed his chin. I'm short a shield. If I can get the outpost shield, we can run the level 30 dungeon on Nightmare. Liang Yue shook her head. It's not that easy. Of the outpost gear, shields are the hardest to get. We've cleared that place so many times and never seen one drop, and there aren't any on the market. If we don't get one soon, we'll all hit level 32, Shi Xing'an said. That'll put us over the entry limit for those dungeons. Once that happens, we won't be able to go into the dungeon or pick up shields there. What then? Don't worry, Shi Xing'an replied. I'll get one, and if I can't, I'll buy a standalone gold shield. Its stats aren't great, but it'll do. He handed a grilled meat skewer to the youngest member. Junior Lin, eat. Liang Yue smiled. So, Junior Lin, what piece of equipment do you want? We can sell it to you cheap if we can get it, someone offered. Shi Xing'an nodded. The outpost set is excellent. It's top-tier gold gear. The shield alone is stronger than some platinum items. Even though Lin Shuidi is only level 23, it's smart to stock gold gear early. You can use it at level 30. Lin Moyu admitted he didn't know the Nightmare Outpost shield's exact stats. He had seen the Hell Outpost shield, and its attributes were impressive, especially the secondary bonuses, plus 50% resistance to control effects and a 50% reduction in control duration. Those two stats are tailor-made for knights. They're practically divine and dramatically improve a knight's survivability. In some fights, they can literally save your life. Can Hell Outpost gear and Nightmare Outpost gear form a set? Lin Moyu asked. Liang Yue took a graceful bite of her meat and replied softly, They can, but Hell Outpost gear is so rare. Very few teams ever clear the Hell-level outpost. Shi Xing'an shook his head. It's really difficult. As far as I knew, teams from Shijing Academy's Creation College, Creation Theology College, and Yanhuang College had all made it through. I didn't know about the others. Liang Yue waved it off. Creation College, Creation Theology, Yanhuang, it's where all the weirdos end up. Of course they passed. The rest? Don't even bother dreaming. Shi Xing'an was about to argue, but then his eyes went wide and he jumped to his feet. This is, he stammered, unable to finish. Everyone else went silent and stared. Liang Yue's mouth dropped open. So far, she nearly lost her grip. There was a loud clatter as the piece of meat she was holding hit the table and wine sloshed everywhere. In the sudden hush, a shield materialized in Lin Moyu's hand, the Hell Post Shield 7. Chapter 116, Sentry Suit. He thinks too much. Lin Moyu produced the outpost shield. It wasn't an ordinary shield, nor a nightmare tier copy. It was the real Hell Post shield. Intricate patterns ran across its surface, catching the light in a dazzling wash of gold, threaded with a hint of purple that gave it a surprisingly luxurious look. Shi Xing'an's eyes went wide. He breathed hard, then forced himself to calm down. Lin, Brother Lin, where did you get that shield? Lin Moyu answered evenly. The outpost's guardian fell. Just now. She blinked, as if he'd misheard through his headset. Junior Lin, you mean the boss, the one on Hell difficulty, went down? Lin nodded. Hell difficulty is insanely hard, Shi Xing'an said, before Liang Yuo cut in. I don't want to beat around the bush. Let me ask straight. Brother Lin, did you just clear the outpost instance on Hell difficulty by yourself? Lin hummed, a non-committal sound, and leaned back. How can that be? That's impossible. Several voices spoke at once. They all knew the reputation. They'd heard of the infamous 747 solo nightmare-level dungeon, and what Lin was implying sounded just as unbelievable. People snorted. What kind of claim is it to have only cleared the Hell-level dungeon? You couldn't fake an outpost shield anyway. These players had clearly farmed the outpost over and over. They knew the drop rules for every piece of gear inside. Shi Xing'an fixed his gaze on the shield and asked, Student, will you sell that shield to me? Lin Moyu tossed the shield to him. See if you can complete a set. If it's outpost gear, it can always form a set, no matter the level, Shi Xing'an said eagerly. He equipped the shield. Instantly, a golden column of light shot into the sky and cut through the lingering fog. Dozens of heads turned. An outpost set. Someone's completed the outpost set. It's them, no surprise. They've been farming here for ages. Of course they'd be able to collect a full set. I heard the outpost set bonus is insanely good, better than some platinum gear. That's for the Hell outpost set. Nightmare-level outpost gear is only on par with top-tier gold. There were envious looks all around. It wasn't easy to complete a set. Weapon, armor, and all the jewelry. Bracelet, necklace, ring, earring. So at least 6 outpost pieces in total. Nightmare outpost runs drop at most 1 piece each time. It might not even be a weapon your class can use, and accessories drop far less often than weapons. Completing a full set was a real pain. Shi Xing'an, however, had finally collected the whole outpost set. His shield was Hell level, and its stats had jumped dramatically. Liang Yue's eyes sparkled. So how is it? Really strong, she said. It adds plus 1,000 to every stat, gives knights an extra 50% bonus, and halves incoming damage. Halving damage was an enormous advantage for a knight. If we upgrade this, the whole team will be a lot safer, Liang Yue said, eyes bright. So you've gotten a lot tougher. Shi Xing'an grinned. Yeah, definitely tougher. Then he realized how that sounded. Several teammates were staring at him, and Liang Yue's face went suddenly pink as she noticed too. Shi Xing'an cleared his throat and steered the conversation away. Sister Lin, how much for this shield? I'll buy it. Lin Moyu answered softly. Just take a look and make me an offer. Earlier, Liang Yu had promised to take him dungeon running and sell him cheap gear. Lin was simply returning the favor. She didn't name a firm price and left it to Shi Xing'an, trusting he wouldn't throw out a ridiculous number. For reference, a gold tier shield normally goes for between 200,000 and 2,000,000. Set pieces cost even more. The attributes on the Hellpost shield were comparable to platinum gear. Though it's part of a gold set, its value was far higher than typical top gold items and approached that of most platinum equipment. The price, if put on the market, would be startling. On top of its quality, the shield's rarity made it priceless. Equipment that can only buy, forged from materials found in Hell-level dungeons, is almost unheard of. Shi Xing'an mulled it over for a moment, then turned to Lin Moyu. Brother Lin, I'll give you 10 million gold coins. How about it? 10 million was 5 times the going rate for top-tier gold shields. By any measure, it was a generous offer. Lin Moyu shook his head. She grew a little anxious. Junior Lin, that's all the gold I have. Liang Yue and the others exchanged looks, none of them pleased. To them, 10 million was already an excellent price. Lin, however, remained firm. 10 million is too much. It's still just a gold-grade shield. It isn't worth that. The rejection surprised everyone. She felt a flush of embarrassment but pressed on. This isn't an ordinary gold shield. It's worth the price. Lin Moyu still refused. Finally, he relented to a compromise. All right, 5 million then. We'll call it a trade. If the shield doesn't meet expectations, return it, and I'll give you your money back. She knew he couldn't realistically return something he'd already taken and used, but he didn't argue. Without hesitation, he handed over 5 million gold coins to Lin Moyu. The deal had brought the two sides much closer. Far below, in the abyss, flames suddenly flared in the impenetrable dark. From the blaze, a huge scarlet eye slowly opened. Many pups died, the voice said, low and amused. Go see what's going on. Obey, another voice answered. The giant eye closed, the fire winked out, and darkness returned. Back at the table, Lin Moyu downed another mouthful of fruit wine. The fatigue that had been dragging at him eased away, and energy returned to him. He didn't bother spending any more mental strength to summon more undead. 140 skeleton warriors and 70 skeleton mages were enough for now. He needed to conserve his mind power for grinding the dungeon later. After they ate and drank their fill, the cooldown on Shi Xing'an's team instance finally reset. Shi Xing'an pushed himself up slowly. Brother Lin, we're heading into the dungeon. His outpost gear was complete. Everyone else's sets were almost finished. He'd still have to run the instance a few more times to get everything right. Lin Moyu nodded. Be careful. You too, Shi Xing'an warned. Hell difficulty is extremely dangerous. At that moment, several people around them turned their heads at once and stared in the same direction. The fog swelled and then split as 6 figures burst out, rushing toward them. They looked battle-worn, armor scratched, cloaks torn, the kind of appearance that made it obvious they'd just finished a fight. As soon as they stepped into view, every head turned. A faint halo of light shimmered beneath each of their feet. The effect was uncanny. The halos seemed to propel them, making their stride at least twice as fast as other fighters of the same rank. They moved like lightning, the mist peeled away before them. Halos, Holy Light Knights, someone called out. Holy Light Knights? No way, they're legendary rankers. Whispers rippled through the crowd. They're from the Shenxia Empire. Look at their uniforms. Must be the same school. Maybe Xiajing Academy? I heard the top schools there train legendary-level fighters. Legendary rankers, so powerful. I'm so jealous. Lin Moyu watched them with a faint smile. His eyes brightened when he saw one face in the group. Ning Yi. He hadn't expected to run into her here. What a coincidence. Shi Xing'an murmured, That's a team from Aurora Academy. The Aurora Academy was famous throughout the Shenxia Empire, a top-tier institution only a step below Xiajing Academy. Countless powerful figures had come out of Aurora, so Lin Moyu was surprised to see people from there here, and even more surprised that Ning Yi was mixed in with them. The Aurora players all wore gold-grade gear and were clearly around level 30. Ning Yi, on the other hand, had only just passed level 20 the last time they'd met. The disparity in levels was obvious. The team moved straight into the dungeon, but when Ning Yi spotted Lin Moyu, she looked startled. She broke off from her teammates and hurried over to Lin Moyu with the quick, light steps of a playful sprite. Why are you here? She asked, her voice bright. Lin Moyu replied softly, I'm here to complete the Ren Luo quest. Ning Yi laughed. What a coincidence. I'm here for that too. Her smile was radiant, charming, and when she looked at Lin Moyu, there was an unmistakable glint of admiration in her eyes. Shi Xing'an, Liang Yue, and the others exchanged knowing smiles. Of course, they understood. Before Lin Moyu could speak, Ning Yi cut in. Let me guess, your mission is to collect some dragon materials, like dragon horns? She shook her head and went on. No, that's too easy. You're after the Dragon Clan's crystal core, aren't you? The one that only drops from the dungeon boss. Lin Moyu nodded with a smile. Ning Yi had guessed everything right and brightened even more. Me too, she said. I want the Dragon Clan's crystal core as well. Suddenly a voice asked, Yi, who is he? Chapter 117. Legendary Class, Holy Light Knight. A man stepped forward and fixed his gaze on Lin Moyu. He wore the same heavy armor as Shi Xing'an, a sword in his right hand and a shield on his left. He was a knight, but not just any knight. Shi Xing'an was a paladin, a rare and respected class. This man was a Holy Light Knight, a legendary class altogether. The difference between the two titles is only one word, yet it marks a gulf. A Holy Light Knight possesses most of the Holy Knight's abilities, but also wields the Halo skill. The halo is devastatingly versatile. It can be used offensively while advancing, defensively while falling back, and it responds to fine control. That single skill alone elevates the class to legendary status. Xixing'an watched him with obvious envy. Liang Yu leaned close and whispered, "Don't be jealous. You still have a chance." Xixing'an was currently a paladin, but at the second and third rank milestones he would have 2 opportunities to transcend his class. If he succeeded, he might one day become a holy light knight himself. He hadn't realized how hard ascension would be. Liang Yue tried to comfort herself anyway. "Okay, I get it," she murmured. A holy light knight approached Lin Moyu, watching him with a faint edge of suspicion. Ning Yi hurried forward. "He's my friend," she said. The knight nodded once, then introduced himself in a low voice. "Zhou Lisheng, level 30, holy light knight." As a courtesy, Lin Moyu gave his own name and level in reply. "Lin Moyu, level 23, Necromancer." Zhou Lisheng's brow tightened. "Necromancer?" he said. "I haven't heard of that class." Ning Yi cut in, sounding both amazed and a little flirtatious. "Wow, you're already level 23? How did you level up so fast? He's only level 21. How are you ahead of me?" Lin Moyu smiled at her exaggerated fussing. "Come on, I'll take you to read the guidebook," he said. Ning Yi nodded quickly. Okay. Zhou Lisheng's expression shifted. "Yi, didn't we agree we'd go get the book together?" Ning Yi giggled. "Sorry, thanks for offering to take me, but I don't need you to. My friend will come with me, so you don't have to worry about it." Zhou Lisheng's face darkened. He shot a hostile look at Lin Moyu. "Only him? He's only level 23, Zhou went on, scowling. "He'll need someone to babysit him while he grinds for the book. How could he possibly take you?" Liang Yue leaned toward Xixing'an and whispered, "He's jealous." Xixing'an nodded. "Yeah, you can tell." Ning Yi waved a hand. "Don't worry about it. If he says he can take me, he can. And thanks, everyone, for bringing me here." Zhou Lisheng still looked put out, but he said nothing more, his glare at Lin full of barely concealed hostility. Lin Moyu didn't seem to notice or care. A legendary class or not, what did it matter to him? Level 30 or not, you fight when you have to, you kill when you must. Zhou Lisheng bristled, but he kept his temper. Lin Moyu had ignored him the whole time, and instead of being apologetic, Lin Moyu had acted like he was the one in the right. Zhao took a deep breath and forced his voice to stay calm. "All right, be careful in there. If he can't handle it, come to me." Ning Yi laughed softly. "Don't worry, he'll be fine." Zhou Lisheng didn't press the issue. He walked back to his team and they entered the dungeon together. 5 players meant the instance would be at nightmare difficulty. With that many people, it's almost impossible to clear hell-level content unless everyone is a legendary class player. Even with a legendary leader, 5 ordinary people could only go in and be fodder. You'd need 5 legends at once to have any chance against hell-tier monsters. When Xixing'an saw the 5 of them go in, he relaxed. For a moment, he'd been ready to fight if the other side tried anything, but it looked like nothing more would come of it. They all teased Lin Moyu, grinning as they walked past. "So you're gonna back Lin Moyu, even against a legendary pro? Don't be ridiculous. You've never played, who knows what you'll do. Lin, watch out. Don't just stare at the girls. Fight the monsters." Ning Yi flushed at the taunts. She stamped her foot and snapped, "Who are you calling that? Stop talking nonsense." Lin Moyu, a little embarrassed, murmured, "Let's get into the dungeon then." Ning Yi continued in a teasing tone, Fine, you can slack off again if you want." Lin knew her well enough to smile inwardly. If she could be lazy, she always would be. With the resources she had, she should have been well past level 21 by now if she applied herself. The 2 of them grouped up and approached the dungeon entrance. Ning Yi tilted her head and asked, "Which difficulty do you want? Normal or nightmare?" She knew the outpost dungeon's difficulty. It was better balanced than most dungeons at their level, and she trusted Lin's skills. Normal would be easy enough, and nightmare might be doable too. Ning Yi brushed off the danger of hell difficulty without a second thought. On normal, she explained, the chance of the boss dropping a crystal nucleus was minuscule. On nightmare it was a little better, roughly 1 in 3. Lin Moyu, however, simply shook his head. "Hell," he said. Ning Yi froze for a moment, then her face lit up. "You want to do hell?" Lin Moyu nodded. That's amazing. I've been wanting to try hell for ages, she cried, leaping to her feet. She didn't seem to consider the risks at all. She trusted Lin Moyu's ability to handle it. Lin Moyu produced a cooldown talisman and used it to clear the dungeon lock. The Dragon Frontline outpost had a 24-hour cooldown, and he wasn't willing to wait. They selected Hell difficulty and entered. They spoke loudly and excitedly as they prepared, their conversation carrying across the staging area. Everyone nearby couldn't help but stare, disbelief written on their faces. Finish the Dungeon of Hell with just 2 people. How is that even possible? There has to be some limit to such bragging. The last time the dungeon got cleared, it was a full team from Xiejing Academy's School of Creation and Theology. I remember, 12 people in that group. 5 of them were legendary class, and they were all decked out in top-tier gold gear. One of the women was stunning, dual-wielding swords, a blade dancer. Even among legendaries, she ranked up near the top. Even the seminary had to mobilize everything they had. If only 2 people went in to clear it, they'd die for sure. Maybe they just went in to take a look around and will come back. The crowd laughed and jeered, clearly waiting for Lin Moyu to make a fool of himself. When Lin Moyu had first attempted the Dungeon of Hell, a lot of people had been ready with jokes. But after the sudden ambush by the Abyss demon dogs, those mockers had either been killed or driven back to the fortress. It would have been surprising if anyone had expected Lin Moyu to stay in the instance so long. As time passed, other players kept arriving, and the whole place quickly returned to normal, as if the Abyss demon dog incident had never happened. Merchants set up stalls and hawked their wares. The entrance to the dungeon grew noisier and more crowded by the minute. The air in the hell-level dungeon was heavy and oppressive, though mercifully not foul enough to make Ningyi plug her nose and complain. Just after they entered, Lin Moyu suddenly tapped his head. Ah, I forgot something. Ningyi looked up, curious. What did you forget? I meant to give you something before we came in, Lin said. You can't take anything out once you're inside, storage is blocked, so I didn't get a chance. I wanted to give you the Hell Outpost dagger, but I remembered only after we'd entered. That's okay, Ningyi said with a laugh. I'm only level 21 anyway, won't be able to use it until 30. Just give it to me after the run. I'm curious to see what it does. Good. 140 skeleton warriors and 70 skeleton mages materialized at once. Lin Moyu cast bone armor over both himself and Ningyi. Ning stared as the armor formed around her, eyes wide. Is this the defensive spell you just put on me? Lin nodded. You'll be safer this way. She burst into a delighted giggle. You're so sweet. This was their second run through the instance, and Lin didn't pull any extra mobs. He also held back from using his wide area slow curse, and instead chose to clear enemies in small groups. Almost every dragon-type monster in the dungeon, save the assassins, had some form of crowd control. Pulling large packs would be risky, and as he'd learned, not much faster than methodical, step-by-step clearing. Since the skeleton warriors and mages had been upgraded, their stats had improved, and their attacks hit harder than before. With that, and his prior experience, Lin fought with much more confidence. Before they knew it, the 3 dragon spearmen stationed along the path were cut down. The skeletons moved into the grove from the left, sweeping through the infirmary as they went. Ningyi's eyes gleamed. It's so satisfying to watch. Lin Moyu smiled. It's really not that hard. Ning stuck out her tongue. It's not hard for you. It's a nightmare for everyone else. Clearing a nightmare-level dungeon this easily is ridiculous. I've got a good eye, though. I'll level up with you from now on, so you can't ignore me. Lin Moyu shook his head. Don't be so reckless. Chapter 118. Men and Women Match. Work is not tiring. Ningyi's bright, tinkling laugh echoed through the dungeon, slicing through some of the oppressive weight of the hell-level environment. Lin Moyu didn't say much. He mostly listened as she talked. Ningyi had a way of talking that never seemed to stop. She poured out the past few days like bitter medicine she needed to get out. I've been getting sent on missions lately, she said. Before this, I could have just gone to the dungeon hall to grind and level at my leisure. But this time, they sent me out into the wild, into a level 22 dungeon called the Ruin Dungeon. The task was to retrieve 2 items from there. One of them I could pick up in normal mode, but the other required clearing the nightmare mode with other players. She made a face. A level 22 dungeon is a level 22 dungeon, right? But the wild one is so much harder than the academies. I just ran that ruined dungeon and wanted to cry. I nearly died several times. Then I had to form a team to do the nightmare run, she went on. Guess what kind of people were in the party? Everyone's gear was terrible, and they were all level 22. We kept getting in tight spots, and I had to patch people up more than once. It was a mess. Lin Moyu listened quietly, an amused half-smile tugging at his lips. Ning Yi's chatter was the kind of bright noise that made the dungeon feel less like a place of doom and more like an inconvenient nuisance. Their armor was crude black iron, but their weapons gleamed silver. To beat a nightmare-level boss, you need someone like me, a level 20 assassin, to carry the team, Ning Yi said, a touch of sour pride in her voice. Lin Moyu chuckled softly at her complaint. Wild dungeons were indeed a bit tougher than those of the same level in the dungeon hall, but not overwhelmingly so. Soloing was dangerous even on normal difficulty, of course, and outsiders' equipment and gear skills simply couldn't match the students from the academy. The differences in gear quality and skill made fights harder, and that was what made him both amused and a little uneasy. But this lady did the first task all by herself and even got the reward. Ning Yi went on, lifting her pale hand with a small show of pride. A ring glittered on her finger, set with a red gemstone that burned like a tiny flame. Lin Moyu recognized it at a glance. The gem was the crystal nucleus of the Goblin King. In other words, Ning Yi was wearing BSOS jewelry, the Goblin King ring. It was widely regarded as the best piece of jewelry for anyone under level 40. On paper, the ring didn't look like much. The basic stats only added +10 to each attribute, but the real power was the secondary effect. It raised every skill by 1 level. That made all the difference. For many classes, when both character level and skill ranks hit their caps, equipment that could boost skill levels by even a few points could instantly change your combat effectiveness. It's so pretty, Ning Yi giggled, holding it up. Lin Moyu smiled. It really is. Boss-grade jewelry was notoriously difficult to craft. Even if you managed to obtain the primary material, you still needed a raft of rare auxiliary components and an alchemist capable of assembling them. Most players who found a main material did so by chance, then it would often take a year or more to track down the rest and find a skilled maker. Lin Moyu was genuinely surprised that Ning Yi had produced the Goblin King ring so quickly. It implied a remarkable family background. Everything Ning Yi had been doing suddenly looked less like random luck and more like careful training arranged by her family. It felt like Bai Yuan had deliberately sent him here for a reason. Once you thought about it that way, everything made more sense. Lin Moyu was still curious about one thing: the boss jewel that gave +1 to all skills. Would that bonus extend to passive skills and talent skills? He wished he could test it. Unfortunately, the boss jewel was special, soul-bound. Only Ning Yi could use it. If he wanted to try, he'd have to get a boss jewel of his own. He'd also heard that some pieces of legendary gear carried skill bonuses, so that might be another way. The second mission was to come here? He asked. Ning Yi hummed. Yes, the old man's requirements are strict. He wants a dragon crystal nucleus. I also have to be level 25 and at least a 1-star private. She touched the sergeant's badge on her shoulder. It was empty, no stars. Then she peered at Lin Moyu's shoulder and blinked. Oh, you're already 2 stars. Lin nodded. Had to clear out a pack of abyss dogs. Ning lowered her voice. We ran into a pack on the way too. It's such a pain, Lin muttered. Not only do you need materials, you also need level and rank, Ning Yi said. Can you take me along for the quest? She asked. Lin Moyu didn't hesitate. Sure, a man and a woman make a good team, less tiring that way. A few hours later, they arrived at the fortress. The monsters outside had already been cleared, so Lin Moyu led the way through the stronghold, pulling enemies into carefully controlled fights and wiping them out quickly. Their experience points climbed rapidly. After they finished off the mages and archers on the walls, Lin Moyu's XP bar hit 40%. A soft light rose from Ning Yi's body. Ah! Level 22 already? That was fast, she exclaimed. her eyes sparkling like stars and her smile bright as a blossom, just like last time on Mermaid Island. "It's great grinding with you. You level up so easily this way," she added. "It's hard for me to find good teammates to run dungeons with. It's risky otherwise," Lin Moyu replied. Ning Yi had clearly come to rely on him. Indeed, one could say she'd fallen for him at first sight. They stepped into the fort, and the skeletons closed in around Lin Moyu and Ning Yi. "There are invisible monsters inside," one of the skeletons warned. Lin Moyu murmured softly. Ning Yi's eyes, already striking, lit up even more. She shouted and pointed in one direction. "There, follow me!" A skeleton mage launched an area skill along the line she indicated. The spell tore through the darkness, and a dragon assassin's invisibility flickered and vanished. Once revealed, the assassin, physically frail and not built for a straight fight, was cut down easily. Ning Yi giggled. "My skills can see through invisibility." In general, assassins have both stealth and anti-stealth capabilities, much like the Sorcerer's Eye for mages or Hawkeye for archers. Their anti-stealth is particularly potent because detecting and countering stealth is their specialty. Guided by Ning Yi's detection skill, the dragon assassins were uncovered one by one and quickly wiped out. If they hadn't had that advantage, they would have had to use a skeleton warrior as bait and pay for it with the warrior's wounds. This time, Lin Moyu switched from a passive stance to an active one, and it made things much easier. The mobs had been cleared away, only the boss remained. The Dragon Guardian statue loomed on the field, terrifying and majestic. Lin Moyu put the bone armor back on himself and on Ning Yi, then said in a low voice, "Stay on the city wall. Don't come near me." Ning Yi frowned. "Why?" She'd assumed he'd send out skeleton warriors as a buffer the way summoners usually do. There shouldn't be any real danger. Lin Moyu whispered, "This one's different. I've got to be the meat shield." Chapter 119. I'm a meat shield, so I can still fight like this. For some reason, Ning Yi stayed unusually obedient. From the high city wall, Lin Moyu could only make out a vague silhouette. Ning Yi resolutely activated her skill. Her vision sharpened until everything became clear. "Finally I can see properly," she murmured, then giggled and sat down. She had meant to take something out to eat, but the storage slot was blocked and she couldn't access it. She dug through her pockets and after a moment produced a single sweet potato. "Good thing I prepared for this," she said, carefully peeling the skin and nibbling at it in small bites. If Lin Moyu were there, she would recognize it. This was the sweet potato she'd given Ning Yi earlier. Lin hadn't expected Ning to stay this long, but the storage held fast and the food hadn't spoiled. Meanwhile, Lin Moyu had already set up a combat formation. With experience from the last encounter, she moved a lot more efficiently this time. The skeleton mages took positions in a ring around the square, enclosing the post guards clustered in the center. The heavier skeleton warriors were kept in reserve, held back for the moment. Lin Moyu stood before the stone statue in his skeleton armor, utterly untroubled. After reaching level 23, the armor's defense had increased again. Its protection now equaled a physical defense of 69,000. With that kind of durability, he could hold his ground and let the outpost guardian draw the enemy's attention for a long time. The stone statue shuddered, its outer shell cracked and fell away. The plaza erupted, a 327 flashed as the fortress trembled. Ning Yi watched as Lin Moyu dismissed all his summoned skeletons and grew even more curious. "Why did you call them back? Did you fight it yourself?" she asked. She already believed he could clear hell difficulty. This was just the sort of question a curious child would ask. The outpost guardian fully revived. Lin Moyu cupped a soul flame in his palm and struck straight at its spirit. At the same time, the skeleton mage sprang into action, raining a flurry of spells down on the guardian. The outpost guardian screamed, then howled up at the sky. Lin Moyu pressed his palm forward, and the heavens filled with red light. A crimson shackle suddenly appeared on the outpost guardian's head. His roar cut off and became ragged and intermittent. Slowing effects cascaded over him. Every movement was labored, and he couldn't dodge or escape. Then a white light flared around the guardian, weakening the slowdown. His speed recovered significantly. Lin Moyu felt the slow curse had been reduced several times over. Now it only hindered him by 3 or 4 times, not the brutal 34.5 multiplier the skill normally imposed. The sentry guard began to tremble, his whole body glowing as a skill activated. Group shock retreat. Lin Moyu stayed rooted in place. His bone armor absorbed the effect, and the shock attribute had no impact. Enraged, the Guardian leapt high and brought his huge blade down with a thunderous crash. From the city wall, Ning Yi cried out. Lin Moyu didn't dodge. The knife, far larger than a normal weapon, would have pulverized anyone beneath it. The skeletal armor around him flared and took the blow squarely. The sword slammed against it, and Lin Moyu remained unscathed. The Guardian's attempt to inflict a group daze also failed to affect him. About 20 skeletons suddenly appeared beside the outpost Guardian. They exploded their skills the moment they materialized. Frenzied strike. A red flash and a huge blade slammed into the Guardian's scales, cracking them. The Guardian screamed. Lin Moyu kept Soul Flame burning. It was his strongest single-target spell right now. It had never failed him and hit harder than the Skeleton Mage's own skill. After the first burst, the skeleton warriors continued to attack frantically, knife after knife. 10 seconds later, when the Guardian's ability came off cooldown, it detonated again. At the exact moment the skill went off, Lin Moyu dismissed all the skeletons. As soon as that wave burned out, a fresh batch of 20 skeletons appeared, brand new summons with unused skills, and they triggered their attacks too, dealing another wave of damage. Each time the Guardian unleashed its ability, the summoned skeletons disappeared. Ning Yi stood there, stunned. So that was how the boss could keep fighting like this, cycling disposable summons. Even mages could be used as meat shields. Summoning was more versatile than anyone had expected, and that set of bone armor he wore offered incredible protection. Ning Yi's eyes narrowed into crescent moons. Starlight glittered in them, and every flicker seemed to be Lin Moyu. One after another, Lin Moyu kept appearing, faster and more efficiently than the last time. In barely 10 minutes, the outpost's supposedly formidable Guardian was ground down by the relentless Lin Moyus and collapsed, defeated. Kill the Guardian of the outpost, experience 1,600, obtain gold-level weapon, Hell Post Magic Sword, obtain gold-level armor, Hell Post Magic Robe, obtain gold-level jewelry, Hell Outpost Ring. System notifications flickered across the HUD. Obtained, Dragon Clan Crystal Core 2, Ning Yi received a job transfer certificate. Hell Outpost Magic Sword, Outpost Set, Gold. All attributes plus 500, Mage skills plus 50%, usable at level 30+. Hell Outpost Magic Robe, Outpost Set, Gold. All attributes plus 300, Mage skill consumption minus 20%, usable at level 30+. Hell Outpost Ring, Outpost Set, Gold. All attributes 100, Fatigue recovery speed plus 30%, usable at level 30+. Dragon's Crystal Core, an extremely rare material for crafting various items. Lin Moyu studied the sword and robe stats. If he reached level 30, he could transmute the spirit set into an outpost set. The mage bonuses wouldn't help him personally, but the huge boosts to all attributes were far superior to the spirit set's benefits. Just then, Ning Yi slid down from the city wall with a whoosh. She ran straight to him, leapt into his arms, and hugged him tightly. "What's wrong?" she asked. Lin Moyu blinked, taken aback. He had no idea what had prompted the sudden embrace. Ning Yi squealed with delight. "I got it! The job transfer certificate?" "I actually got the job transfer certificate." "Isn't that one guaranteed to drop?" Lin Moyu asked, surprised at how excited she sounded. Realizing she'd been a little over the top, Ning Yi let go of Lin Moyu, took 2 steps back, and blushed. She ducked her head and quickly changed the subject to hide her embarrassment. "Well, it's guaranteed. But it's not that simple. Hell-level dungeons only take between 12 and 24 people. Sometimes 12, sometimes 18, sometimes even 24. Each successful run drops a single job transfer certificate, and it goes to a random player who doesn't already have one. So if you have a fixed team where everyone needs one, you have to clear the dungeon once per person," she added. 12 players means 12 runs. 18 means 18. Playing the hell-level dungeon over and over is exhausting and dangerous. If you have to play it more than a dozen times, you'll go insane. The transfer certificate had become the toughest hurdle in the second transfer. Countless people were stuck on it. Lin Moyu couldn't help but think of the Academy's dungeon trial. To advance, you had to pass through the vast Tyrant Desert, and just as many cadets had become bogged down there. The two challenges felt eerily similar. With the boss defeated, the dungeon's restrictions were lifted. Lin Moyu pulled out the Hell Outpost dagger and handed it to Bai Yi. "This is for you." Chapter 120. All bark, no bite. After they cleared the second dungeon, most of the tasks Bai Yuan had set were already finished. The dragon horns alone had reached 12, more than enough. They had collected 8 vials of dragon essence blood and 7 dragon hearts. Just one more run, and that requirement would be complete. They also had 4 Dragon Clan crystal nuclei. He needed 5, and Ning Yi wanted 1, so another trip was inevitable. Lin Moyu had originally planned to finish the quest and move on. But after getting familiar with the layout and mechanics, he changed his mind. The hell difficulty run of the Dragon Frontline Outpost had unexpectedly turned into a perfect place to grind. The experience gains were high, and the equipment drops were solid. It wasn't suitable for mass pulls and group clearing tactics, but it was eminently soloable, and the solo efficiency wasn't bad at all. More than that, he wanted to farm a full Hell Outpost set, not just for himself, but for Ning Yi as well. He couldn't help being a little greedy when he looked at the set's stats. Ning Yi, for her part, couldn't stop fawning over the Hell Outpost dagger. She clutched it like it was the prize of the run. Although it couldn't be used yet, there was no sign of any defect. The dagger was exquisitely made, a slightly curved blade with a graceful arc. Its stats even exceeded those of top-tier gold weapons. Ning Yi liked it more and more. "You're really giving this to me?" she asked. Lin Moyu nodded and handed her another dragon crystal core. Ning Yi beamed like a flower. "Thank you," she said. "Let's go out and rest for a while, then come back and train," Lin Moyu suggested. This time, he only needed 6 hours to work through the book and become proficient. Their pace had improved dramatically from before. Talking with Ning Yi the whole time made it feel easy and not nearly as tiring. Outside the dungeon, dogs barked constantly and fierce battles raged. After a few hours, the abyssal demon dogs returned, in even greater numbers than before. They had surrounded the dungeon exit. Anyone who tried to leave was set upon. Several people had already been killed by the beasts, and many more were wounded. An invisible breath, a cold, oppressive miasma, began to spread, blanketing a wide area. Professionals from the Shenxia Empire had thrown everything they had at the abyss demon dogs. Squads formed a tight defensive line, while the healers never stopped working, casting recovery spells and patching wounds. Xixingan's team had become the backbone of the defense. The sentry suit, the standard-issue outpost armor, had held up and eased some of his tension. He felt lucky. If he hadn't been wearing it, things could have gone very badly just now. They'd barely left the dungeon instance when they were ambushed. The entire team was wounded. Liang Yu kept her healing spells flowing without pause, chugging potions between casts. This kind of fighting drained more than flesh. It burned through willpower and spirit energy, and she kept forcing herself to replenish them even as she worked. "We can't stay here," someone muttered. "We have to break out." Outside, the enemy press was a solid, writhing wall. There were at least 500 abyss demon dogs closing in from all sides. They were completely surrounded. Liang Yue swept a glance across the massed beasts. If they didn't punch a hole through now, they would be trapped and cut down. "It's no use." The archer on their team suddenly called out. He raised his head and squinted into the sky. "There's an abyssal demon up there. It won't let us leave." The sky was a blanket of mist. Xixingan peered through it with his eagle-eye technique and could make out more movement ahead. Liang Yue paced, tense. "What should we do?" he asked. "Hold on," she said. "We wait for Junior Lin to come out. He's the bane of abyssal monsters. Once he appears, those dogs will be vulnerable. Lin Moyu's area attacks are devastating. 1 or 2 strikes and the place will be cleared." Liang Yu knew their only chance was to hang on. The hounds were dangerous but manageable. The real threat was the flying abyssal demon above them. That was what had everyone on edge. At that moment, the front of the dungeon shimmered and another person stepped out. The aerial demon swept a cold gaze over the newcomer and with slight disappointment hissed, "Not them. The scent of my child isn't on them." "Then let's eat," it snarled. Before the teleportation of the people exiting the dungeon had even finished, the abyssal hounds lunged, ripping and biting wildly. A scream cleaved the fog. Zhou Lesheng had only just emerged. Before he could steady himself or clear his vision, he heard his companions scream. "What happened?" Zhou Lesheng barked. The halo at his feet shifted in an instant. The white glow vanished and was replaced by a ring of flame-like auras that rolled outward like ocean waves. The moment he changed it, the same halo sprang up under every teammate's feet. It was the Holy Light Knight's halo. Its effect could be shared among teammates within range. Skill: Resist Aura. The aura flared, and the abyssal dog that had been clamping down was blasted away. A half-meter zone around each person became a no-go for abyssal magic. With the aura active, Zhou Lesheng ignored the nearest dog and scanned his surroundings. Why were there so many abyssal dogs? He had never seen anything like it, easily 500 or 600 of them. 2 teammates had already been bitten, and the team's healers were frantically using their skills to treat them. Shi Xingyan saw Zhou Lesheng and the others emerging from the dungeon and yelled, "Heads up! Demons overhead!" Zhou Lesheng snapped his head up. His eyes went hard as a winged demon came hurtling down toward them. He had the instinct of a fighter, sword in his left hand, shield in his right, and dropped into a ready stance. The demon, a hulking abyss fiend, grinned and hefted a spiked mace, fingers tightening on the haft. Zhou Lesheng's voice was low and steady. "It won't do you any good. My halo won't break." The demon only sneered, "Die," and slammed the mace down. For a heartbeat, Zhou Lesheng's confidence held, then his face changed. His resistance aura failed to stop the blow. With a thunderous impact, the mace smashed into his shield, flipping him through the air. Healers on the team, sharp-eyed and quick, cast a healing spell as he fell, but it was only partial aid. Zhou Lesheng hit the ground, coughing and spitting blood, horror written across his face. The strike had been so brutal, it had come close to killing him. Every defense they had proved useless. Shi Xing'an's shield shattered under the blow. The halo, every protective ward and spirit trial resistance they could muster, failed as well. Shi covered his head with both hands and muttered, bitterly amused, "All that bluster, and it comes down to nothing." Liang Yu only nodded. "Worthless," she agreed. The abyss demon hovered above them, wings beating slow and deliberate. Dozens of scanning spells and detection techniques homed in on it, and each one returned the same grim result. Level 36. Far beyond them, so many ranks higher there was no way they could stand toe-to-toe. Abyss demons were notorious for their strength. Fighting one at even footing was hard enough, let alone one this far above them. Shi Xing'an brought his own detection magic to bear and whispered, "This is bad. I hope Brother Lin doesn't show himself yet. He should wait until they leave before he comes out." The demon's voice was cold and hungry as it drifted down. "Sk, a holy light knight, legendary profession." There was a cruel amusement in it. If you can kill a holy light knight, you can get a pretty price for the corpse. At that, someone from Zhou Lesheng's team produced a device and activated it. A beam of light shot straight up into the sky and detonated in a blinding flare. The light was so intense it could be seen for hundreds of miles. "I've sent out a distress signal," Zhou Lesheng shouted. "If you insist on facing us, someone will come to our rescue." The abyss, Sal Demon, merely grinned. "It's too late," it said. At that moment, the dungeon entrance flared to life, and someone stepped out once more,